Chapter 2098. It was developed and issued by the International Initiator Monitoring Organization, ISO. It was a ranking based on the number of protozoa that each existing pair of police officers had defeated and their achievements. Why was it called the IP ranking? The reason was very simple. It was because the police officers were partners of the initiator of the cursed child, and the facilitator of humanity. Initiator. Facilitator. Taking the first letter of the two, that would be I and P. Therefore, the so-called IP ranking must be a ranking that was registered by the initiator and facilitator of the partner, who became a police officer. In the past, Tina's partner facilitator was the professor who transformed himself into a mechanical soldier for the new human creation project. Of course, that professor did not have any combat ability. Generally, he was only giving orders to Tina and letting her complete the mission. The reason why Tina was able to enter the top 100 at that time was entirely due to her personal strength. After joining the fairy tale, Tina had lost her facilitator, and even her IP ranking was frozen. It was not impossible to start over. But without a partner facilitator, Tina would not be able to increase her IP ranking at all, right? While Noah was thinking about this, Hall Master Zheng was stunned and said, "That's right, Hall Master Zheng. Don't you know that you're Tina Sprinter's facilitator?" Me. Noah was stunned. When did he become Tina's facilitator? It seems that you really don't know about this. Officer Zheng frowned and said, "As early as 3 years ago, President Tiantong announced to the public that you were out on an important mission, and would not be back in a short period of time. After that, Tina Sprinter also registered as a police officer with the International Initiator Monitoring Organization, and her facilitator partner at that time was you. In other words, Tina registered Noah as her facilitator without his consent at all. I think that this should be President Tiantong's idea," my Hall Master Zheng said. "President Tiantong has said that our guild will definitely become the cradle of police officers in the future. As the guild president, if you don't have your own IP ranking, it's inevitable that people will criticize you. That's why Tina Sprout registered you as her promoter. You're active in the front lines against the protozoa, leaving behind many achievements in various countries around the world. In the end, together with you, she was promoted to the first place in the IP ranking half a year ago." What? Noah was dumbfounded. "In other words, I've also become number 1 on the IP ranking?" "Yes." My cousin nodded his head. "Furthermore, everyone in the world knows about this." Noah was speechless. Who would have thought that he would actually become the first in the IP rankings without knowing it at all? Wasn't this a little too sudden? However, my Hall Master Zheng is right. Undoubtedly, as the president of Fairy Tale, Noah has obtained a police officer's license, and has personally trained many outstanding police officers. How can his IP ranking be too low? Otherwise, when Fairy Tale is released to the world, it will inevitably become a topic for foreigners to pass time. It's not like it won't have any impact on the guild. Tiantong Mu is the acting president and Thousand Life Summers president's advisor. They also formed a police force partnership 3 years ago. Their rankings have risen quite a bit in the past 3 years. They are currently ranked 3rd in the IP rankings. My police officer said in high spirits. In addition to the rest of the S-grade police officers, our guild occupies 7 of the top 10 police officers. There's no doubt that we're the strongest civilian organization in the world. As early as 3 years ago, everyone in the world already knew that among the police officers, the power of the first pair was so strong that it could even influence the military structure of the entire world. One could imagine how powerful the top 10 police officers in the IP rankings were, and what kind of impact they would have on the world. Under such circumstances, not only did Tina kick out the police officer who was ranked first in the previous IP rankings and become the strongest initiator, even Fairy Tale had 7 pairs of police officers who were ranked in the top 10. How could she not become the strongest? Countries around the world had always been worried that Fairy Tale would dominate the world and control them. Firstly, it was because of the current situation. Secondly, it was because Fairy Tale did indeed have the ability to do so. The 7 pairs of top 10 police officers were proof of this. IP ranking number 1, Noah Doria, Tina Sprout. IP ranking number 3, Tiantongmu, Longevity Summer World. IP ranking number 7. Riken Rintaro, Ain Lanhara. Together with the other 4 pairs of police officers, they were the strongest fighting force of Fairy Tale. This was a well-known fact. Not only did Noah partner up with Hina and become the first IP ranking, but even Mugung, Summer World, Rintaro, and Ain Lanhara had made great progress in the past 3 years and reached the point where they could influence the military structure of the world with their individual strength. Coupled with the completion of Fairyland and the expansion of the guild, there were indeed a lot of changes in 3 years. With this in mind, Noah could not help but speak in a low voice. I just don't know if these 3 years have changed the feelings of the holy ruler of Tokyo. My captain asked. What did you just say? Nothing. Noah came back to his senses and shook his head to get rid of the random thoughts in his mind, and returned to the topic at hand. Since Rintaro and Ain Lanhara are traveling around the world as the leaders of the tour group, where did Mugung, Summer World, and Hina go? Hearing this question, my captain suddenly became serious. What's wrong? Noah keenly sensed that the atmosphere was not right. Did something happen? No. My captain shook his head and said so. It's just that, even if something did happen, it wouldn't be strange. Even if something did happen, it wouldn't be strange. Noah frowned. What do you mean? Not long ago, countries all over the world expressed their desire to have a meeting with Fairyland. My captain pondered for a moment, and then revealed the news. The location is in the Tokyo area. A meeting. Noah narrowed his eyes. No wonder Mugung appeared in the live broadcast of the press conference, so he went to the Tokyo area for a meeting? For countries all over the world to suddenly request for a meeting at this time, it's definitely because of Fairy Tale. My captain looked straight at Noah. Among them, if some countries want to harm the president of Tendo, it's not impossible. Just like 3 years ago, Chiwu Xuanzong of the Daiban area proposed a meeting with the ruler of Tokyo, but repeatedly sent assassins to assassinate the emperor. Those who came did not come with good intentions, and those with good intentions would not come. In such a tense situation, representatives of various countries issued a request for a meeting, and the location was the only Tokyo area that had made their stance clear, that they were definitely on the side of Fairy Tale. Therefore, it was normal for someone to want to play some dirty tricks. After all, Noah, the real president, was not in Fairyland, and Mugung, the acting president, was the only pillar of support in Fairyland. Once Mugung fell, there would be no leader and Fairyland would definitely be in chaos, and others would take advantage of the situation. Therefore, although nothing had happened at the moment, it would not be strange if something suddenly happened. That was what my captain wanted to express. Although Tina Sprout went to the Tokyo area as a guard, and the president of Tendo and consultant Qiansho are also the top 3 powerhouses in the IP ranking, it's better to be safe than sorry, my captain said. Under the targeting of countries all over the world, the president of Tendo cannot guarantee her safety. Noah immediately fell silent. My captain also fell silent, and did not say anything more. In the lounge, a somewhat oppressive atmosphere spread, and Ninsei Asakaya could not help but hold her breath. After a while, Noah stood up. It seems that I have to go to the Tokyo area earlier than expected. Chapter 2099. The sky gradually darkened. Nighttime in this world is very scary. That was because at night, in the dead of the night, the low growls and roars of the protozoa would pass through the giant stone monument from time to time and reverberate around the edge of the city. The timid people couldn't even fall asleep, afraid that they would never wake up again if they fell asleep. Of course, in the noisy city center, such a sound is impossible to reach. Whether it is Fairyland or Tokyo, it is the same. Compared to the rapidly developing Fairyland, Tokyo has not changed much compared to 3 years ago. The holy residence where the ruler of Tokyo lived was the same. It had been there for 10 years without any changes. At this moment, in a living room of the holy residence, 2 young girls in their prime of life are sitting opposite each other, as if they are having a tea party. It's been a long time since I leisurely drank tea with Lord Holy Sun like this. The girl who said such a sentence is Tenko Mugino. Behind Mugino, Xiaoshi stood there quietly like a secretary. On the opposite side of Mugung was a pure and holy young lady. That is a girl as white and pure as snow. The girl is wearing a white wedding dress, white lace gloves on her hands, and a luxurious top hat on her head, with a stunning sense of sacredness. It is believed that as long as it is a person in Tokyo, then no one will not recognize this girl in her prime of life. The ruler of Tokyo, Holy Sun. If after 3 years, Magino has become much more mature than before, and all the childishness has faded away, the change is not small, then Holy Sun is just the opposite. Time does not seem to have left any trace on this holy girl, making this young head of state still as holy and beautiful as 3 years ago. However, those in the know are sure to know that the change of Holy Sun is not on the surface, but in the heart. At least, until 3 years ago, no matter what kind of important occasion she attends, she needs to be accompanied by an assistant like Tenko Kikuchi or the like. Compared to 3 years ago, this girl has become extremely independent and wise, no longer the young head of state who is mocked by others as a vase and looked down upon after losing her assistant. Thus, the Elysian emperor nodded at Mugung with a dignified and polite smile. After all, Tenko Kikuchi and I both need to manage a region. If not for this period of official business, then we would not have the chance to meet. I'm fine, at least I have Xiaoshi to help me, and there is also a group of smart and capable people in the guild. Otherwise, for a student like me who just graduated a year ago and didn't even go to university, I really can't torment such a big fairyland, Magino replied with a smile. Compared to the Holy Son of Heaven who has been dealing with official business alone since 3 years ago, I am still far behind. Don't be so humble, Guild Master Tiantong. You're someone who built fairyland single-handedly. No one would think that you're inferior to me. The Elysian child gently shook his head. Moreover, I can only handle official business, unlike Tenko Kikuchi who has great power. To be honest, being at the same table as you, I feel very safe. Lord Holy Sun, you feel safe, but that's not all because of me, is it? Magino laughed. Lord Holy Sun must have guessed that Tina is nearby, am I right? That's one of the reasons. Holy Sun nodded. Although it's already an honor to have Sword Ghost and Think Tank at the same table, but with the rumored Black Wind keeping watch around, then nothing will go wrong. In the IP ranking, as long as it was a police officer ranked in the top 100, they would be given a nickname. 3 years ago, Tina, who ranked 98th in the IP ranking, already had a nickname Black Wind. Today, Tina still used the nickname from that time, making the name Black Wind widely known around the world. Of course, Magino, who ranked 3rd in the IP ranking, also had a nickname like Xiaoshi. Magino was famous for his swift and ruthless Tenko-style sword-drawing technique. His combat power was even stronger than most of the cursed children, so he was given the nickname Sword Ghost. Xiaoshi, on the other hand, was a cursed child with dolphin genes. Among the cursed children, he was one of the rare brainiacs. Usually he was a supporting character. Although his combat power was not outstanding, he could clearly analyze the weakness of any enemy. Thus he was given the nickname, Think Tank. By the way, Rintaro and Yenju's nicknames were Chariot and Tornado respectively. The former's identity as a mechanical soldier of the New Humans Creation Project was already known. Once the super holmium metal prosthesis was used like a rain of bullets, the battle was like a large chariot, extremely terrifying, so he was given the nickname Chariot. The latter was a cursed child with rabbit-like genes. Among the current cursed children, his speed was definitely one of the best. On the battlefield, once he charged, not even his shadow could be seen. He was like a tornado passing through the battlefield. Thus he was given the nickname, Tornado. As for Noah, as the world's strongest initiator, the promoter of Tina Sprinter, ranked 1st in the IP ranking, it was naturally impossible for him not to be given a nickname. However, for the past 3 years, Noah had not appeared in people's sight. The intelligence agencies of some countries could not even investigate the most basic information such as his birthplace. It was as if this person had appeared out of thin air. He had been active for a year and a half, and then suddenly disappeared. He was as mysterious as a supernatural existence, which made people shudder in fear. Therefore, until Tina broke into the top 10 of the IP ranking, Noah finally received a nickname, the Hermit. This was Noah's current nickname. Thinking of this, Sheng Tianzi lowered his head. His pair of eyes began to ripple. Then Sheng Tianzi asked in a low voice, as if he was looking forward to it, but also as if he was uneasy. He hasn't come back yet. No. Mu Geng could not help but sigh. Since he left 3 years ago, he hasn't come back. And in any case, our guild's intelligence department has no way to collect information about his whereabouts. Xiashi interrupted and said softly, "It's as if the president disappeared into thin air." As the words fell, the entire meeting room was filled with a somewhat heavy atmosphere. Is that so? Sheng Tianzi's eyes flashed with a flash of disappointment. He turned his head, looked at the night view outside the window and muttered, "It's been 3 years? Yes." Mu Geng also looked at the night view outside the window and said so. Time really flies. For me it's a bit long. Sheng Tianzi's voice became a little distant. Yes, 3 years is too long. At the very least, Elysian Prince felt that the past 3 years had been too long. But 3 years have passed. Sheng Tianzi whispered. It's time for him to come back, right? When he said this, Elysian Son of Heaven's tone was extremely uncertain. It was like he was looking forward to it, but also like he was afraid of being hurt, which would definitely arouse the sympathy of all men. In this regard, Mu Geng seemed to know something. He looked at Sheng Tianzi with some amusement, and said so. Although our president is extremely domineering and does things his own way, as far as I know, he is not the kind of man who would break an agreement. Please don't worry. Hearing this, Xiashi, who was standing next to Mu Geng, could not help but smile. Sheng Tianzi seemed to have only just come back to his senses. His pretty face blushed. After taking a deep breath, he suppressed the shyness in his heart and changed the topic. It's getting late, President Tiantong. Why don't you go back and rest early? There's an important international meeting tomorrow. That's true. Mu Geng smiled sweetly. Then I'll go back to the hotel first. Master Sheng Tianzi, please take care of me tomorrow. After that, Mu Geng stood up from his seat. Sheng Tianzi immediately stood up and walked out of the meeting room with Mu Geng and Xiashi. Whether it was Mu Geng, Xiashi, or Sheng Tianzi, none of them noticed. On the top floor of a building far away from the holy residence, a man in a black robe stood facing the wind, looking in the direction of the holy residence. Through the window, he looked at Sheng Tianzi, his whole body trembling. Chapter 2100. Lord Holy Son of Heaven. The voice that came out of the black-robed man's mouth was full of love. However, in addition to love, there was also extreme madness and greed in the voice. I'm finally back, Lord Holy Son of Heaven. The black-robed man stared at the Holy Son of Heaven who was walking out of the room in the holy residence. His voice was full of madness as he muttered, "You're mine. You're mine. You're mine after all." As he spoke, the black-robed man's lips curled into a hair-raising arc under his hood. Then the black-robed man bowed. Bang. In the next moment, in a muffled explosion, the black-robed man stepped on the ground and burst out like a cannonball. With a sharp sound, he rushed straight toward the holy residence. That speed was really faster than a bullet. The holy residence, which was originally a bit far from the building where the black-robed man was, closed almost half of the distance in less than a second. With this speed, the black-robed man could definitely break through the window of the holy residence in the next second and attack his target. This kind of physical strength was really shocking. Even the cursed child might not be able to reach this level. However, in the next moment, the black-robed man suddenly noticed something. At the top of a building further away from the holy residence, a red light suddenly flashed. The black-robed man suddenly came to a halt. He ignored inertia and gravity and abruptly stopped in midair. Almost at the same time, a sniper bullet cut through the air and swept less than a centimeter away from the black-robed man's chest, landing on the wall of a nearby building. Bang! The powerful sniper bullet directly blew up the wall, leaving a shocking bullet hole in the wall. The black-robed man who was in a frenzy just now finally reacted and broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, the black-robed man also realized something. Someone was sniping at him. That red light just now was the muzzle flame of the sniper rifle when it was fired. But, how was this possible? The black-robed man turned his head and looked in the direction of the building. He whispered in disbelief. This has to be at least 2 kilometers away. Sniping from a distance of 2 kilometers? And it was so accurate. Who was it that could do such an inconceivable thing? Could it be? The black-robed man thought of a person, and his eyes under the hood suddenly widened. However, the black-robed man's time to think was over. The black-robed man saw it clearly. At the top of the building more than 2 kilometers away, bursts of red light flashed one after another. The black-robed man's expression changed dramatically, and he fell down without hesitation. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A few sniper bullets scraped through the air, creating a sharp sound as they pierced through the air. Suddenly, they flew past the black-robed man's position. Bang 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 bang. In the next moment, the powerful sniper bullets landed in the air one after another, blowing up the concrete on the ground where they landed. Whether it was the walls or the road, they were all blown up, leaving bullet holes in them. Once again, the black-robed man, who dodged in advance because he sensed the muzzle flame, broke out in a cold sweat as if he had escaped a calamity. The moment he landed on the ground, he immediately dodged and rushed into a nearby building. His back was pressed against the wall as he hid. The opponent's sniping was too terrifying. It was accurate to such an extent from more than 2 kilometers away. If he didn't hide, the black-robed man would be dead for sure. But that kid isn't a close combat initiator. As long as I hide, there won't be a problem, the black-robed man muttered to himself. In the end, this sentence was exchanged for a voice. Indeed, I'm not a close combat initiator, but that doesn't mean I can't fight in close range. When this sentence rang out from the building and passed into the black-robed man's ears, his heart stopped beating. However, the black-robed man's subconscious saved him once again. He subconsciously rushed forward and left the wall behind him. Bang! The wall suddenly exploded. A petite figure rushed in from the outside, directly passing through the rubble that was still flying in the air, and shot in the direction of the black-robed man. The sniper rifle in her hand was used as a blunt weapon, and she heavily swung it in the direction of the black-robed man. This time, the black-robed man couldn't react in time. A powerful attack that was as quick as a thunderbolt was simply beyond the standards of a human. The black-robed man could only watch as the sniper rifle, which was used as a blunt weapon, hit his body. Then something unexpected happened. Clank. When the heavy sniper rifle hit the black-robed man's body, a crisp sound like hitting steel sounded from under the black robe. The black-robed man was knocked away by the powerful force. After rolling on the ground several times, he stopped, turned over, and jumped up, staring straight ahead. It's really surprising. I thought that the blow just now was enough to get rid of you. The one who said this was the petite girl holding the heavy sniper rifle. The girl was wearing a one-piece blue dress. Her slender and petite shoulders were exposed, and the sleeves were black. Although she was less than 150 centimeters tall, from the performance just now, there was no doubt that extremely terrifying power was hidden in that petite body. The moonlight shone in through the gap in the wall that was smashed by the girl, illuminating the girl's silver-gold hair and a pair of scarlet eyes. The figure like the Grim Reaper made the black-robed man say the girl's name in a hoarse voice. Tina Sprinter. The girl was Tina, the world's strongest initiator, the ace of fairy tale Tina Sprinter. Looking at the cursed child bathed in the moonlight, the black-robed man felt that even his breathing was about to stop. At the moment when the pair of blood-red eyes stared at him, the black-robed man only felt the hair all over his body stand up, and even his scalp was a little numb. 3 years ago, Tina was already one of the top 100 cursed children in the IP ranking, and her profession was an assassin. At that time, Tina already had an illustrious reputation, and the name Black Wind resounded throughout the world. Even if she wasn't known by everyone, but those who knew her knew that up until now, no one had ever survived from the person she wanted to kill. The only exception was the Son of Heaven 3 years ago, because at that time, Noah was protecting Tina's target, which was why Tina failed. Since then Tina joined Fairy Tale. That failure seemed to have made the Grim Reaper of this inner world even scarier. In just 2 years, he had risen to the top of the IP rankings and slaughtered countless protogut animals. Even the number of stage 4 protogut animals he had killed was unknown. Under such circumstances, the cold aura that came from a long period of killing was enough to make anyone who looked into Tina's eyes feel their body temperature plummeting. Although the black-robed man was very confident in his own strength, only at this moment did he understand one thing. That is, even if he was very special, compared to the girl in front of him, he was still not on the same level. Damn brat! Being forced to realize this, the black-robed man's face under the hood began to distort. However, Tina just coldly looked at the black-robed man. After a while, she turned her head, looked to the side and said so. Okay, all of you come out. As soon as the words fell, the entire place suddenly fell silent. However, very soon, a pretentious voice rang out. Aya, I was discovered so easily, as expected of the legendary Black Wind. Accompanied by such a voice, two figures rushed out from the shadows where Tina was looking and landed next to the black-robed man. Looking at the two people, Tina frowned slightly. Allow me to introduce myself, Honorable Strongest. A tall and slender man in a crimson tuxedo with a clown mask on his face, took off his hat and bowed toward Tina in a pretentious manner. My name is Leeching Een. Beside me is my daughter, Leech Little Benet. Let's say that 3 years ago, I was acquainted with that mysterious president of your family, right? Yes. Leeching Een. 3 years ago, he attracted the stage V Scorpio, and almost brought disaster to the entire Tokyo area. The madman who attempted to destroy the world. Chapter 2101. Leeching Een. Tina's furrowed brows slowly relaxed. Her scarlet eyes shot straight at Leeching Een, then turned to Benet Leech Jr. Leech Benet held a pair of odachi in his hands, his eyes also becoming incomparably scarlet, but with an innocent expression, he said these words. Tina Sprinter, I know you. Dad told me that you're the strongest one among us. Saying this, Benet Leech Jr.'s murderous aura and blood energy rose. So, I want to chop you up. Undoubtedly, his expression was so innocent, but Benet Leech Jr.'s words and aura were quite terrifying. In this regard, Tina's expression didn't even change. She said somewhat coldly, You are not my opponent. Benet Leech Jr.'s eyes widened, and then his eyes became even more scarlet. Without a doubt, this cold-blooded cursed child was angry. Dad. Benet Leech Jr. said without turning his head. I want to chop her up. Even if you don't let me, I must chop her up. After saying this, Benet Leech Jr. didn't wait for Leeching Een's reply. His petite figure suddenly moved, like a mantis stalking a cicada, and raised the odachi in his hands high. Duh. Tina's feet suddenly touched the ground, and her figure rapidly retreated. However, Benet the Leech pounced in front of Tina at an astonishing speed and slashed out a thunderous slash at the retreating Tina. Chop you to death. Chop you to death. Chop you to death. That was a deranged cry. The cursed child named Benet Leech Jr. chased fiercely, and mercilessly slashed like a storm, causing streaks of cold light to appear in the air. Like a real blade, he slashed in Tina's direction like a storm. That terrifying continuous slash. If it was Tina 3 years ago, she would have been cut into pieces. After all, 3 years ago, Leeching Een and Benet Leech Jr.'s IP ranking was already 134, and this ranking had been frozen for a long time, and there was no update. 3 years had passed, and Leech Little Benet's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. At the very least, Tina was certain that even the top 20 initiators in the IP rankings were only at this level. Hina, on the other hand, was not a melee-type curse child. Her IP ranking 3 years ago was only 98, so she was naturally no match for the current Benet the Leech. However, after 3 years, Benet the Leech had changed a lot, but Tina had changed even more. In the face of this terrifying storm of sword strikes that could have easily killed her 3 years ago, Tina looked on calmly. Her slender body was like a leaf as she dodged back and forth, evading all of the sword strikes with brute force. Immediately after, Tina suddenly spun around, and the sniper rifle in her hand transformed into a blunt weapon once again. Then she flicked upwards from the bottom to the top. Bang! Benet Leech didn't even have the chance to dodge. He was smashed in the chin by the butt of the sniper rifle. He flew out like a bullet, brushing past Leeching Een's side and smashing into the wall. Guha! Benet Leech spat out the air in his lungs. His body slid down from the wall, and he knelt on the ground. The initiator, whose strength was enough to rank in the top 20 IP rankings, was knocked down by Tina in one hit. The black-robed man sucked in a breath of cold air. Li Qingyi's pupils slowly contracted under his mask. After a while he pressed down on his hat and said, "So that's how it is. Is this domain?" Domain. It wasn't an ability, but a realm. A realm that only the cursed child could reach. When the cursed child broke through the limits of their growth, a phenomenon called domain would appear on their body. Those who reached domain had extremely powerful strength. Those who hadn't reached domain would never be able to defeat those who reached domain. Of course, this realm wasn't something that just anyone could reach. Only a very small number of initiators with extremely high IP rankings had the possibility of reaching domain. Then how high was it? This was something that hadn't been calculated yet. However, from the fact that even Tina, who was ranked 98th in the IP rankings 3 years ago, was unable to reach this realm, it could be seen that those who could reach the beginning of the domain would have to be at least in the top 20 or even the top 10 of the IP rankings. Tina had only reached domain realm 2 years ago. After that, her strength greatly increased, and she had won many battles. Finally, 1 year ago, she had reached first in IP rankings, becoming the strongest initiator. In other words, the current Tina's strength was also incomparable to before. It was because of the existence of this domain that the cursed child's strength was strong enough to influence the military situation of the world. Tina, who had already become the strongest initiator, now even if she was to face off against a stage V primitive animal that could destroy the world, she would still have the ability to win. This was the difference between those who had reached domain and those who hadn't. The reason why the Holy Son of Heaven said that with Tina there would be no mistakes was because he knew that Tina had already reached domain realm. Although Xiaoshi's IP was ranked 3rd, logically speaking, he should have also reached domain realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such a ranking. Unfortunately, Xiaoshi was the brainiac initiator, and the real combat strength was Mu Geng, who had the terrifying sword-drawing technique. In terms of combat strength, 3 years ago, Mu Geng was even stronger than Tina. It could be imagined that Mu Geng's strength was also terrifyingly strong. However, not long after Tina reached domain, Mu Geng's growth limit was broken, and Tina, who had rapidly grown, left him behind. Otherwise, Tina wouldn't have been able to become the strongest initiator and raise her IP ranking to the highest by herself. Unfortunately, after reaching domain, the rate of the primitive animal virus in the cursed child's body would greatly increase. If it wasn't for the fairy tale, which had an agent that completely suppressed the invasion of the primitive animal virus, Tina would have very likely become a primitive animal. Hee. Li Qingyin let out a frightening laugh under his mask. No wonder you could become that man's initiator. Tui. The black-robed man spat in disdain, and his voice became filled with disgust. As expected, the initiator of monsters is also a monster. Hearing this, Tina's expression didn't change. She lowered the sniper rifle in her hand, and didn't even aim, as if she was really planning to use the sniper rifle as a blunt weapon. Her gaze fell on Li Qingyin and the black-robed man. "Who sent you here? Is that important?" Li Qingyin let out a low laugh. "You only need to know that someone wants the life of the celestial child, and that is enough. Not only the celestial child, but the Holy Son of Heaven is also our target." The black-robed man's laughter was the kind of laughter that only despicable people would have. Of course, the celestial child can die, but the Holy Son of Heaven can't die. I still want to properly dote on her. The vulgarity in his words caused Tina's expression to become cold again. "It seems that no matter how much I ask, you won't tell me." Tina stared intently at Li Qingyin and the black-robed man. "First, I'll make you lose the ability to fight. Leave the interrogation to our companions in the guild." In the air, an astonishing pressure suddenly filled the air. The most powerful initiator who had reached the realm of domain was finally serious. The first to react was Li Qingyin. Li Qingyin suddenly pulled out 2 very strange-looking guns from his waist, and without hesitation, he pulled the triggers one after another at Tina. Bang 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 bang. Following the continuous firing of the guns, bullets pierced through the air and enveloped Tina's direction. However, before that could happen, Tina had already disappeared. With a flash, she dodged the incoming shots like a ghost. Ignoring the bullets that fell near her feet, she suddenly charged forward. The sniper rifle in her hand whistled through the air as it violently swung toward Li Qingyin. Her speed was astonishingly fast. With Li Qingyin's speed, it was impossible to dodge. However, Li Qingyin wasn't an ordinary person. Snap! Li Qingyin suddenly snapped his fingers. In the next instant, an invisible repulsive force suddenly expanded from Li Qingyin's body, and it met Tina's sniper rifle. Dong! The sound of a heavy impact resounded. Chapter 2102. Boom! The powerful sniper rifle and the invisible repulsive field collided with each other. Not only was there a heavy muffled sound, but there was also a strong gust of wind that attacked the surroundings. Hina was surprised by the result. While Hina was still in shock, an ugly voice came from behind her. "Did you forget about me? Stinky brat." Following this sentence, a black-robed figure whose entire body was shrouded in black robes sprang out from behind Tina and raised his fist before abruptly swinging it down. Boom! The moment the muffled explosion sounded, the entire ground was smashed into pieces by the heavy punch. Like glass, the ground cracked and collapsed. Rubble and debris shot out in all directions like bullets. Li Qingyin, who was closest to Hina, snapped his fingers again, and a repulsive force spread out, deflecting the rubble and debris. As for the black-robed man, he didn't even have time to react. He just let the rubble and debris fall on his body, causing a series of ding-ding-dang-dang sounds. Then, the two turned their heads at the same time and looked in the same direction. There, Hina just happened to fall from the sky. Obviously, when the black-robed man's shocking punch came, Hina had already jumped and dodged in advance. After standing still, Hina looked up and stared at Li Qingyin and the black-robed man. Her eyes began to change. "So that's how it is," Hina whispered. "Are you also the product of the new human creation project?" If that wasn't the case, then there was no way to explain the repulsive force that Li Qingyin used and the black-robed man's strength and defense. It was obvious that it wasn't a power that an ordinary human could have. Li Qingyin had an imaginary device implanted in his body that could create a repulsive force field within a certain range. The black-robed man's body must have been modified as well. He probably had a mechanical body like Rintaro. Both of them were mechanical soldiers created by the new human creation project. Speaking of which, you're also a product of the new human creation project, right? Li Qingyin seemed to have thought of something and looked at Hina with a burning gaze. With a chip implanted in his brain, he can control a small reconnaissance aircraft called Sandfeld from a long distance. He can snipe from a very long distance and control all the information within his reconnaissance range. He's a super existence that combines the power of the cursed child and the mechanical soldiers. Furthermore, he's reached the realm of domain. I really want you to join us." "Unfortunately, I won't betray my brother," Hina said without hesitation. "The only person I can follow is my brother." "But that guy has already disappeared," the black-robed man said with a cursing tone and a smile. "Maybe that guy is already dead." As soon as he said that, whoosh! Tina's body transformed into a series of afterimages as she hurtled toward the black-robed figure. The black-robed man was shocked. He quickly crossed his arms and blocked in front of himself. In the next moment, a sharp military dagger was tightly grasped in Hina's hand. With a cold glint, she stabbed at the black-robed man like raindrops. Ding 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 ding. The continuous stabs landed on the black-robed man's body, causing a series of crisp sounds. Ha 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 ha. The black-robed man laughed out loud. "It's useless. No matter what kind of attack it is, it can't hurt me." Hina ignored the ear-piercing laughter. The military dagger in her hand continued to stab. The onlookers could only see the cold glint of the dagger as it landed on the black-robed man's body, causing a series of crisp sounds. The first person to realize that something was wrong was still Li Qingyin. That idiot! Li Qingyin raised his gun without hesitation and pointed it at Hina. However, Hina suddenly took a step and darted into the black-robed man's shadow. Li Qingyin's gun suddenly lost its target. That was because Hina's petite body was completely blocked by the black-robed man. Under such circumstances, Hina continued to stab the black-robed man's body with the military dagger. If one looked closely, they would realize that Hina's relentless stabs all landed on the black-robed man's left shoulder joint. Thus, when Hina stabbed the military dagger for the umpteenth time, there was no crisp sound this time. Crack! The sound of something cracking suddenly came from the black-robed man's left shoulder. What? The black-robed man cried out. Tisk! Li Qingyin was speechless. He gave up on the gun and rushed out. He activated the imaginary device in his body and concentrated the repulsive force field on his palm, forming an invisible repulsive force spear. Leech Binet Jr. finally recovered from his injuries with the strong regenerative ability of the cursed child. He held Tuodachi and pounced like a crazy demon. In the end, no one noticed. While Hina was stabbing the black-robed man endlessly, the sniper rifle in her other hand was already pointed at the ground. When Li Qingyin and Leech Binet Jr. were behind her, Hina's voice echoed. Explosive bullet. With that, Hina pulled the trigger of the sniper rifle. Boom. In the uninhabited building, a violent explosion suddenly occurred. Flames surged out of the building like a wave and instantly shattered the glass and walls. The pedestrians on the road were all shocked. Looking at the unoccupied buildings filled with flames, one by one, they were shocked, panicked, and in a commotion. Some even began to call the police. The explosion set the building ablaze and instantly created a fire scene. No one knew that the building was not on fire, but that someone was fighting. Gulp. Cough. Ugh. In the center of the explosion, in the building that had turned into a sea of fire, Li Qingyin, Leech Binet Jr., and the black-robed man were all on the ground. Their bodies were charred black and they let out muffled groans. Although they were not killed by the explosion, they were severely injured. Hina was standing in the middle, but she was not affected at all. She threw away the sniper rifle that had exploded because of the powerful explosive bullet, and held a military dagger in her hand. She looked at the black-robed man, and said coldly, "This is what you get for speaking rudely to my brother. Bastard." The black-robed man's face was ferocious. So strong. Leech Binet Jr. finally showed an expression of fear. Really a monster? Li Qingyin could not help but let out a bitter laugh. Because, no one knew better than these three people why Hina was unscathed in the face of the explosion that did not distinguish between friend and foe. At the moment of the explosion, Hina released three spherical objects. That was the Sandfeld. It was a small reconnaissance aircraft that could collect all the information within its scope and directly transmit it to the user's mind. With the help of the three small reconnaissance drones, Tina was able to gather information about the explosion in an instant. She calculated the area of effect of the explosion, and used her sniper rifle at the area where the explosion was the weakest to disperse the waves of flames and shockwaves that were rushing towards her. That's right. She dispersed it. Hina's attack had blown away the explosion itself. Undoubtedly, the cursed child was not a close combat type, but he had such strength. With such strength, it was no wonder that the strongest initiator would give up on long-range sniping, which was the most advantageous for him, and directly rush over. How terrifying. The initiator of monsters is also a monster, you said it yourself. Hina walked in front of the black-robed man, and pointed the military dagger in her hand at his head. Her crimson eyes shone with determination. If my brother is a monster, then let me be a monster too. Her words that were not confused made the black-robed man tremble all over. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. The black-robed man roared in a low voice. Why is it that man? Why is it always that man? What's so good about that man? Why do you all see him in a different light? The roar that was full of hatred and resentment made Hina narrow her eyes. Did this guy have some kind of grudge against her brother? Just as Hina was thinking this, another voice that was different from anyone else's suddenly sounded. How surprising, I didn't expect you to still be alive. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened. Chapter 2103. The ceiling of the building that was engulfed in flames had already begun to collapse, causing thick smoke to fill the entire space. It was extremely uncomfortable. However, regardless of whether it was Tina, Li Qingyin, Leech Binet Jr., or the black-robed man, none of them cared about this. Everyone's eyes widened slightly. When they finally reacted, they turned their heads abruptly and looked towards the source of the sound. They saw that on one of the windows that was engulfed in flames, a figure had unknowingly appeared there. He sat on the windowsill, ignoring the surrounding flames as a pair of deep, dark eyes met everyone's gaze. "You've grown up, Tina. Brother." The crimson color in Tina's eyes instantly disappeared, and they returned to their original color. The coldness that Tina had been carrying since the beginning of the battle had disappeared without a trace, and was replaced by excitement. He's actually back?" Li Qingyin's expression changed abruptly under his mask. "Father." Li Qingying Jr. seemed to have awakened a terrifying memory, and for the first time, she called out to Li Qingying for help. Only the black-robed man's body trembled the moment he saw the person who had arrived. In the next moment, a roar filled with resentment and hatred rang out. "Noah Dole." Driven by resentment and hatred, the black-robed man suddenly leaped up. His figure shot out violently, and he rushed in the direction of Noah with an astonishing frenzy. "Brother!" Only then did Tina snap back to her senses. She looked at the black-robed figure charging toward Noah, and her eyes turned crimson again as she arched her petite body without any hesitation. Just as Tina was about to rush out, a voice stopped her. "Tina, don't do anything." Noah leaped down from the windowsill and landed on the ground. Looking at the black-robed man who was rushing towards him like a madman, the corners of his mouth curled up with a hint of mockery and coldness. "I'd like to see how much you've improved compared to 3 years ago, you undying bastard." After saying that, Noah did not dodge. He just stood there, looking at the black-robed man rushing towards him with a faint smile. This performance naturally caused the black-robed man's resentment and hatred to become even more violent. "You're courting death." The black-robed man suddenly roared, his speed becoming even more astonishing as he rushed towards Noah. Then the black-robed man raised his tightly clenched fist, bringing with it the sound of the wind, and punching towards Noah's head. That punch carried with it a strong gust of wind that blew out the raging flames that were burning within a radius of a few meters. The sound of the explosion was extremely ear-piercing, telling everyone how astonishing the power of this punch was. Unfortunately, in the face of this astonishing blow that was like a cannonball, Noah only narrowed his eyes, raised his hand and punched out. Boom! When the two extremely ordinary-looking fists collided together, accompanied by a heavy muffled sound, a circle of powerful impact suddenly spread out, shattering the ground, causing cracks to spread out like a spider web with Noah and the black-robed man as the center. However, the ground wasn't the only thing that cracked. In the split second when the two collided, the black-robed man's gloved fist also issued a cracking sound, and the entire sleeve of his arm was shattered into pieces by the shockwave. Hidden under the sleeves was an arm that had a metallic luster. It was an arm completely made of pure black metal, flashing with faint blue light patterns. Noah had only seen such an arm on one person. That was Rintaro. In the absence of gravity, using holmium as the base, and then mixing in rare and ordinary metals to create an artificial arm made of a next-generation alloy with a hardness and melting point several times higher than holmium. Noah opened his palm and held the super holmium metal arm tightly, and smiled at the black-robed man. "You crawled back from hell, and this is what you get." After that, Noah suddenly turned around and kicked the black-robed man heavily. Clank! The powerful kick landed on the black-robed man's chest, and it still caused a crisp sound like the collision of steel. However, the force of the kick actually hit the black-robed man's body, and the black-robed man flew backward, his feet rubbing against the ground, and he slid all the way back. However, before that, Noah reached out a hand and grabbed the black-robed man's black robe. With a tearing sound, the black-robed man's black robe was torn to shreds. It wasn't until the person in the black robe slid all the way out that everyone present finally saw the person's true appearance under the black robe. However, when she saw the black-robed man's full face, Tina's scarlet eyes narrowed. If Tina, Rintaro, and Li Qingying were all mechanical soldiers of the new human creation project, then in front of this man, they could all throw their identities as mechanical soldiers into the trash can. This was because no one was more suitable to be a mechanical soldier than the black-robed man in front of them. As a mechanical soldier of the new human creation project, Tina only had a chip implanted in her brain, and Li Qingyin had an imaginary device installed in his body. Even though there were mechanical parts in his body, he was undoubtedly a human. Even Rentaro only had his right hand, right leg, and left eye replaced with super holmium metal prosthetics. The man in front of them was a true mechanical soldier. There wasn't an inch of skin on his body, only pure black super holmium metal. Even the head was made entirely out of super holmium metal. The face was clearly a mannequin. It was a life form made entirely out of metal. However, from the man's metal face, Tina could still recognize a person in her memory. "You are?" Tina gasped in shock. Yoshihito. This name wasn't very well known. However, as long as it was a guild member who had joined Fairy Tail 3 years ago, they would definitely recognize this person. This was because 3 years ago, the captain of the Son of Heaven's Guard team had a grudge against Noah. He buried hundreds of bombs in Fairy Tail, causing Noah to be completely disappointed in the people of Tokyo. He was the main culprit behind the decision to not participate in the Third Battle of Tokyo. How could this be? Tina was truly shocked. "Undoubtedly, you were executed by my brother in front of everyone in Tokyo." It wasn't just an execution. When he killed Yoshihito, Noah used anti-tank bullets and blew up Yoshihito's entire head. Logically speaking, Yoshihito should be dead. There was no way he could come back to life. "Yeah, I've already died once." The metal on Yoshihito's face wriggled like real muscles, causing Yoshihito's face to distort as he roared with extreme resentment. "My entire head was blown up. I couldn't even feel pain. I couldn't even beg for mercy. In front of so many people, I was shot to death and became like this. If it wasn't for the fragments of my brain remaining, I wouldn't even be able to come back to life." No, even if there are fragments of your brain remaining, there is no way to come back to life. This is something even a child knows. Noah casually threw away the fragments of the black robe in his hand. As if he had seen through all of Yoshihito's secrets, he spoke indifferently. "I'm afraid that someone injected the virus of a protozoan into your brain fragments. Relying on the protozoan's amazing regenerative ability, it allowed your brain to recover, then created a super holmium metal body, and put your head in it. That's how you successfully came back to life, right?" Yoshihito's distorted face began to twitch. Obviously, Noah's words completely hit the nail on the head. "Now your brain has been transformed into a protozoan, and your body is also mechanized. There are no human parts to speak of." Noah smiled sarcastically. "You didn't come back to life, you just became a monster." Chapter 2104. Noah's words pierced deeply into Zhuo Wei's heart, causing blood to rush to his head. "I'll kill you. I'll kill you." Zhuo Wei roared crazily. "I'll definitely kill you." Just as Zhuo Wei was about to charge out again, a hand gripped his shoulder tightly. "Unfortunately, it's almost time." Li Qingyin pressed down on his cracked mask with one hand and pressed down on Zhuo Ren's shoulder with the other, as he spoke in an unquestionable tone. "The attack should have already begun. If we continue to stay here, we'll just be digging our own graves." Zhuo Wei glared angrily at Li Qingyin. However, Zhuo Wei's angry glare was met with a murderous glare from Li Qingyin under his mask. "If you don't want to listen to me, I don't mind making you listen to me." That deep and emotionless voice made Zhuo Wei's heart tremble slightly. Although Zhuo Wei had been modified into a mechanical soldier, and was no longer an incompetent weakling like 3 years ago, Zhuo Wei was still no match for Li Qingyin. After all, Zhuo Wei was different from Zhuo Wei, who only relied on his mechanical soldier's super holmium metal body to fight. Not only could Li Qingyin skillfully use the virtual device in his body, but his combat skills were also quite powerful. Zhuo Wei could not compare to him. Zhuo Wei was just an incompetent captain of the security team. He was not like Li Qingyin, who had killed countless people in his life. He was extremely cruel, and even tried to destroy the world. It was impossible for Zhuo Wei not to be afraid in the face of such a crazy person. Zhuo Wei could only unwillingly lower his arm and roar at Noah with a twisted face. "Remember, one day, I'll kill you with my own hands." After saying that, Li Qingyin grabbed Zhuo Ren with one hand, and leaped into the blazing sea of fire with Leech Little Binet, disappearing without a trace. "Wait." Tina wanted to chase after them, but Noah stopped her again. Don't worry about them. We'll deal with them later, Noah said. What's important now is Mugung. Let's go there first. Young Mistress Mugung? Tina was first taken aback before coming to a realization. Could it be? That's right, their mission was to lure you away. You've fallen into their trap. Noah turned his head and looked in the direction of the sacred residence. Mugging should have suffered a real attack. It's more important to rush there now. It was just as Noah had thought. After Tina was lured away by Zhuorun, Ingin the Leech and Benay the Leech, a group of people attacked the holy abode. Bang 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 bang. Amidst the chaotic gunfire, a group of people wearing bulletproof vests and gas masks were hiding behind cars, trees, and all kinds of cover, firing in the direction of the holy residence. The guards of the holy residence were fighting back. They used the entire holy residence as cover, holding guns and constantly shooting at the terrorist troops. Compared to 3 years ago, Holy Sun had obviously spent a lot of effort on the guards. The guards today were not as incompetent as they were 3 years ago. Although they were caught off guard, they still organized an effective counterattack and firmly blocked the terrorists outside the holy residence. Among them, Xiaosher also held a submachine gun and constantly pulled the trigger, letting the bullets rain out like raindrops, restraining the terrorists' footsteps. Behind Xiaosher, Mugging calmly held a knife, and beside her was Holy Sun. Bang! A grenade was thrown over, but it was shot by Xiaosher. It exploded in midair, setting off a strong wave of fire and impact. However, this grenade completely tilted the battle in the direction of the terrorists. As if they were inspired, the terrorists threw grenades one after another. Bang 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 bang. Explosions sounded one after another, blowing up the guards of the holy residence one after another. Some were even blown away by the waves of fire and impact, rolling on the ground in a sorry state and crying out. Under the powerful firepower attack, the terrorists finally came out from behind the cover. Like an army, one by one, they approached Mugging and Holy Sun. Miss Mugung. Xiaosher did not panic, but looked at Mugung calmly. President Tiantong. Holy Sun tightly held his hands in front of him, and cast his gaze on Mugung. Under the gaze of Xiaosher and Holy Sun, Mugging only slowly put her hand on the hilt of the knife, and her eyes began to become sharp. Just as the knife ghost was about to show his power, an accident happened. Poochie! A strange sound suddenly sounded. In the terrorist group that came out in full force, the head of the attacker who rushed at the front suddenly exploded, splashing a large amount of blood and brain matter, and slowly falling to the ground. The sudden sacrifice caused the entire terrorist group to subconsciously stop in their tracks. However, the moment they stopped, the terrorists' doomsday also arrived. Xiao 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 xiao. Sniper bullets suddenly cut through the air, with a sharp sound that surpassed the speed of sound, fiercely attacking point one by one. The terrorists' heads were shot through by the sniper bullets, and with the last cry of their lives, they fell to the ground and lost consciousness forever. The group of terrorists had no way to find where the enemy was, and suddenly panicked. However, the sniper bullets that brought death continued, and the terrorists fell one by one. Pools of blood stained the ground red. Seeing this scene, Mugging breathed a sigh of relief and smiled slightly. Looks like Tina made it in time. Obviously, when the attack came and Tina did not appear, Mugging had already guessed that Tina was lured away by someone else. Now Tina had obviously defeated the interferer and joined the battle. Apart from Tina, there was no one else in Mugging's memory who was able to hit their target with a 100% accuracy rate. Moreover, Mugging had already discovered that Tina's Sandfeld had moved here and was investigating the scene. There was no clearer signal than this. Tina made it in time? Xiaosher seemed to be relieved. Then there's no problem. They both belonged to the Fairy Tale Guild, and he was Tina's closest playmate, so no one knew how terrifying Tina's strength was better than Xiaosher. To put it bluntly, if Tina was willing, even if she were to attack a large country, it would only be a matter of time before the country was destroyed. Unless there was someone who had also reached the level of domain in the country. Even if it was close combat, which was her weakest point, the current Tina could easily defeat almost all of the cursed children. Once she went into sniping, which she was most proficient in, She was truly invincible. Therefore, in Xiaoshi's opinion, since Tina had made it in time, then there was no problem. However, the Holy Son who had been protected all this time shook his head. No, it's not over yet. Yes, it was not over yet. Because, even though the terrorists were panicking after the unimaginable sniping, they still did not retreat. What did this mean? It meant that the terrorists were not willing to give up the attack, but it meant that they still had methods that they had not used yet. This thought was confirmed in the next second. Tisk, there's no other way. A guy who looked like the leader of the terrorists took out a communication device and shouted into it. Release that. Just as the leader of the terrorists finished speaking, a military helicopter flew over from midair. That's Mugging and the Holy Son seemed to have thought of something, and their expressions changed slightly. Xiaoshi focused his attention on another place. That was a large metal box that the military helicopter was carrying. The military helicopter that flew above the holy residence directly released the steel rope that was holding the metal box, and the huge metal box fell from mid-air and landed heavily on the ground. Quick! The leader of the terrorists hurriedly ordered. Open it! A few of the terrorists immediately ran around the metal box and pressed the combination lock. At this moment Mugging, the Holy Son, and Xiaoshi had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Chapter 2105. No one knew if Tina had the same bad premonition as everyone else, but a few sniper bullets immediately pierced through the air and shot the terrorists who were gathered around the combination lock, sending them to hell. Go again. Go again. All of you go. The terrorist leader shouted in a voice that didn't sound rational at all, ordering the terrorists to go forward one after another, rushing to the side of the large metal box as if their lives depended on it. They operated the combination lock in an attempt to open the metal box. With so many sacrifices, the last password was finally pressed. Gotcha! Along with such a sound, the linked parts of the large metal box suddenly separated, as if disintegrating, falling in all directions. Wah! Seeing everything in the large metal box, Mugging, Elysian, and Xiaoshi all gasped in shock. Bang! A sturdy leg came out of the iron box and landed heavily on the ground, causing a rumbling sound and a cloud of dust to rise. A huge creature walked out step by step, exposing its full appearance to everyone's vision. Looking at the behemoth, all the guards of the holy abode widened their eyes, the blood draining from their faces. Mugging, Elysian, and Xiaoshi also looked at the huge figure, falling into shock. In a word, it was a protozoan. However, it wasn't a normal protozoan. At least, normal protozoans definitely didn't have such a huge body. Its height was more than 10 meters. The length of its neck took up 3/4 of its height. Its head was the appearance of a standard reptile. Its body was like an elephant. Although its tail wasn't as long as its neck, it was still much longer than its body, and was very heavy. When it landed on the ground, even a casual drag could crush the ground. Its appearance was simply like a long-necked dinosaur from the dinosaur era. Its 4 thick legs stomping heavily, causing the ground to tremble. However, its skin wasn't as smooth and thick as a long-necked dinosaur's. Instead, it was filled with pore-like lumps, looking extremely disgusting. Ooh! Then, the long-necked protozoan let out a roar that shook the air. The roar even formed a storm, blowing away everything in the surroundings towards Mugging, Xiaoshi, and the Holy Son of Heaven. Mugging, Xiaoshi, and Sheng Tianzi all had different reactions when they saw the huge protozoa. Stage 3. No. It's definitely a stage for protozoan. Mugging's expression was a little ugly. How could this be? Elysian Son of Heaven was in disbelief. They actually managed to transport protozoa in here? Xiaoshi gripped his submachine gun tightly, his expression constantly changing. The three of them did not expect that in order to achieve the goal, the terrorists behind the scenes actually secretly transported the primitive animals to the Tokyo area and brazenly threw them into the attack. That was no joke. The protozoa themselves were not scary, but that was another matter altogether. The most important thing was that if one was attacked by a protozoa, there was a high chance that one would be infected with the protozoa virus, causing many people to turn into protozoa. If it was not handled well, and the protozoa virus spread in the Tokyo area, It would definitely be a disaster. In order to kill me, they didn't hesitate to drag the entire Tokyo area into the water and involve the innocent people? Mugging gripped the handle of the katana at her waist, her gaze becoming fierce. A bunch of incorrigible bastards. Elysian Son of Heaven's expression also became somewhat sorrowful, closing his eyes as if he was praying to God. Under such circumstances, the terrorist leader pointed in Muging's direction and actually ordered the protozoa. Kill her. Hearing that, the long-necked protozoan turned its long neck and turned its eyes to Mugung, a murderous glint appearing in its eyes. Ooh. The next moment, the long-necked protozoan actually obeyed the terrorist leader's order and moved its thick but short legs, running wildly in Muging's direction. Dong 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 dong. The earth-shaking footsteps echoed in the surroundings, causing the entire holy residence to tremble. Lord Elysian Son of Heaven. Mugging and Xiaoshi chose to protect Elysian Son of Heaven at the same time, one on the left and one on the right, dashing in front of Elysian Son of Heaven, one on the left and the other on the right, one in a battle stance, the other holding up a submachine gun. Fire! Fire! The holy residence guards also reacted, suppressing the fear in their hearts. One by one, they raised their guns. Don't even think about it. The terrorist leader led the remaining terrorists and also raised their weapons, once again starting a gunfight with the holy residence guards. The protozoa in the shape of the long-necked protozoa, under the cover of the terrorists, roared while charging in the direction of Mugung, and the others like a tank. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of a bullet piercing through the air was heard. The powerful sniper bullet pierced through the air and landed on the head of the long-necked protozoa. Bang! The head of the long-necked protozoa was directly blown apart by the powerful anti-tank sniper bullet, spilling a large amount of blood and flesh. It was extremely gory. The long-necked protozoa's charge was stopped. Good job, Tina. Mugung and Xiaoshi smiled in unison. Unfortunately, in the next moment, Mugging and Xiaoshi's smiles froze. Gurgle gurgle. In a creepy squirming sound, the flesh on the neck of the long-necked protozoa suddenly bulged out. In the next second, the head of the long-necked protozoa returned to its original state, roaring loudly. Seeing this scene clearly, whether it was Mugging, Xiaoshi, or the Holy Sun, all of them were shocked. Holmium is ineffective. The metal that could weaken the activity of the protozoa's virus, causing protozoa to lose their regenerative ability. Holmium. It was because of this metal that humans obtained the means to effectively kill protozoa, and were able to survive. However, the long-necked protozoa in front of them had regenerated after suffering a fatal injury. No one would think that Tina's sniping would not use holmium bullets when the enemy was a protozoa. In this case, there was only one explanation that could explain the phenomenon before them. Holmium was ineffective. Is that protozoa's regenerative ability very high? At the top of a building far away, Tina, who was aiming and shooting, could not help but be speechless. For a moment, she could not snipe anymore. A stage for protozoan was a calamitous existence for ordinary people, and even ordinary police officers. A person who had the ability to deal with a stage for protozoa alone, even if it was the initiator of the cursed child, had to be at least in the top 100 of the IP ranking. However, Tina was the strongest initiator. She had the ability to deal with a stage V zodiacal protozoa alone, let alone a stage for protozoa. However, that was under the condition that the attack method was effective. If holmium was ineffective against protozoa, then even if it could be defeated, the opponent would immediately recover. There was nothing that could be done. Therefore, the expressions of Mugging, Xiaoshi, and Tina, who was sniping at the top of a building far away, became solemn. The Holy Sun, on the other hand, had a face full of worry. He clenched his fists tighter and tighter as he kept praying. The Holy Sun's prayer was obviously successful. Whoosh! Just as the long-necked dragon was roaring wantonly, the sharp sound of something breaking through the air rang out again. However, this time, it was not a bullet that caused the sound of something breaking through the air, but a person. A figure suddenly rushed over from the distant horizon. Like a meteor, it cut through the air and shot in front of the long-necked dragon. Then it threw a punch. Boom! When the meteorite-like punch landed on the body of the long-necked dinosaur, The terrifying force impacted the huge body of the stage, for protozoan and spread out. The long-necked dragon's roar didn't even have time to fall before its entire body exploded under the astonishing punch. Pieces of flesh mixed with a large amount of blood fell to the ground one by one like a large piece of trash. The figure that descended from the sky slowly landed, accompanied by huge pieces of meat and crimson blood. Then it landed on the ground. Mu Gung and Xia Shijun fell into a daze as if they had not reacted to what had happened. The Holy Sun was also stunned. However, when he saw the full appearance of the figure that landed on the ground, his beating heart suddenly stopped. At the same time, Noah raised his head and met the Holy Sun's gaze. Time stopped. Chapter 2106. Perhaps it was just an illusion. However, at this moment, everything in the world seemed to have disappeared, leaving only a man and a woman, looking at each other. Noah and the Holy Son of Heaven looked at each other, and they could clearly see the emotions in each other's eyes. Of course, Noah did not know what kind of emotions were in his eyes at this moment. Noah only knew that in the eyes of the pure and holy girl, all kinds of emotions were clearly revealed. In those eyes there was disbelief. In those eyes, there was disbelief. In those eyes, there was an extremely strong joy. In that pair of eyes, there was an unprecedented emotion of excitement. Although all of this was only shown in those watery eyes, Noah undoubtedly felt it for nothing. 3 years was like one day. With just one look, Noah could confirm that the pure and holy girl in front of him was still the same as the head of state who confessed in front of him 3 years ago. She had not changed at all. At the very least, the feelings in the deepest part of his heart would be completely revealed with just this look in his eyes. Thus, Noah's expression unknowingly softened. Only at this moment did Mu Gung and Xiaoshi react. Looking at Noah, the shock on their faces turned into shock, and then into joy. Noah. President. Hearing Mu Gung and Xiaoshi's call, Noah retracted his gaze from the Holy Son of Heaven and turned to the two girls. However, the current situation was clearly not suitable for reminiscing. How is this possible? The terrorist leader, who had witnessed the entire process of the long-necked dragon being killed, let out a trembling voice, as if he was hysterical. Hey, move for me. Move for me. You haven't completed your mission yet. You're not allowed to die here. How much do you think it cost to nurture you? Hurry up and get up. Amidst the terrorist leader's shout, the pieces of flesh of the long-necked dragon that had been blown apart suddenly wriggled up. The surprise on Mugging and Xiaoshi's faces faded, and they became alert again. The Holy Son of Heaven also realized that this was not the time to be happy, and his face tensed up again. Even Noah frowned slightly. He looked at the pieces of wriggling flesh around him and muttered softly. Not only is he immune to qi, but his regenerative ability is also so strong. As mentioned before, there were differences in the regenerative abilities of protogut animals. Ordinary holmium weapons, which were weapons made from holmium, could kill individuals. Their regeneration ability was ranked at level 1. Most protozoa and originators belonged to this level. Those that did not belong to this level were defined as level 2. They were able to resist ordinary weapons, and could only be defeated by beheading or burning them with fuel. At level 3, even the severed arm could be regenerated or returned to its original body. The cells seemed to resonate with each other. Level 4 meant that even if it lost most of its internal organs, it could still regenerate. If one wanted to kill it, they would have to destroy it completely. Level 5 meant that even if the target was thrown into an extremely low temperature, vacuum, or magma of thousands of degrees, as long as it adapted to the environment, it could regenerate. Moreover, it was a molecular level regeneration. Other than super holmium items, no physical means could kill it. Since the giraffe was immune to qi and could move even if it was bombed into pieces, its regeneration ability must be at least level 3. Not only is it a stage for protozoa, but its regeneration level has also reached level 3. Noah cast his gaze on the terrorist leader and narrowed his eyes slightly. This protozoa, that guy was really commanding it just now, right? Let alone a stage for protozoa. Even a stage I protozoa had never been heard of taking orders from a human. However, the terrorist leader had successfully ordered the stage for giraffe to attack. Leech Shadow Een, Threat Protector, and Stage for Protozoa. All of them are cards that ordinary people can't have. Noah was deep in thought. Looks like the attack this time wasn't as simple as the rulers of various countries not being able to tolerate the existence of fairy tale. With this thought, Noah looked at Xiaoshi. Xiaoshi, you have incendiary bombs on you, right? It was just a short sentence, but Xiaoshi had already understood. The next moment, Xiaoshi took out a few incendiary bombs from his waist, pulled out the safety pin, and threw them directly at the giraffe's flesh. Bang 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 bang. Following the sound of explosions, the incendiary bombs exploded and set off bursts of fire. The entire vast space in front of the holy abode was engulfed in flames. The fire engulfed the wriggling flesh of the long-necked dragon, slowly burning. Under the burning of the fire, the giraffe's flesh was gradually roasted to a crisp. Finally, it stopped moving and turned into ashes in the fire. It's over. The terrorist leader let out a voice of despair. At this time, Tina's sniping began again, shooting down all the terrorists one by one. Looking at this scene, the terrorist leader knew that it was over. Hee hee, hee hee hee. Extremely abruptly, the terrorist leader began to laugh neurotically. It's okay, it's okay. The terrorist leader let out a voice that made one's hair stand on end. Even if we fail this time, next time, we will definitely succeed. In the end, the world will definitely belong to us, to our Five Xiang Association. Five Xiang Association? Mugang and Sheng Tianzi both had a reaction to this name. Five Xiang Association? Noah was slightly startled. Noah had never heard of this name before. Just as Noah was slightly startled, the terrorist leader suddenly pulled out a gun and pointed it at his throat. Wait! Mugang and Sheng Tianzi exclaimed in unison. But at this time it was already too late to stop it. Bang! The sound of the gunshot echoed clearly in the sky above the blazing holy abode. The terrorist leader slowly fell to the ground. A large amount of blood flowed out from his throat and dyed the ground red. Mugang and Sheng Tianzi opened their mouths slightly. In the end they sighed and chose to remain silent. Noah's brows furrowed once again. Ignoring the raging flames, he directly stepped forward and came in front of the terrorist leader. He squatted down and removed the other party's gas mask. What appeared in Noah's field of vision was an extremely ordinary middle-aged man. Of course, Noah didn't recognize this middle-aged man. His gaze stayed on the middle-aged man's face for a while. Noah then turned to the middle-aged man's body and began to inspect. And, suddenly, Noah discovered that there seemed to be a mark on the middle-aged man's neck. Raising his eyebrows, Noah directly reached out and tore off the middle-aged man's bulletproof vest. He looked at his neck. The mark on the middle-aged man's neck was nothing else but a tattoo. A pentagram tattoo decorated with a pair of feathers. A pentagram tattoo decorated with feathers. Noah whispered. Five Xiang Association? Noah didn't know what this so-called Five Xiang Association was. However, from the fact that the other party's members could control protozoa, it was definitely not an ordinary organization. Moreover, this organization was very likely to have people who could carry out the transformation surgery of the new human creation plan. If this wasn't the case, then Threatjewel wouldn't have become a mechanical soldier. I'm afraid that it's not an ordinary person who can carry out the transformation surgery of the new human creation plan, right? After all, it might not be too difficult to inject a brain fragment into a protozoan virus and restore it, but it was definitely not as easy as it sounded to fit a restored brain into a mechanized body, allowing the brain to smoothly drive the entire mechanized body and maintain its rationality and thought processes. In addition, Li Qingyin also appeared and moved together with Threatjewel, who was reborn. This so-called Five Xiang Association was definitely not ordinary. Of course, whether or not Threatjewel was a member of the Five Xiang Association still needed to be proven. Perhaps like Li Qingyin, who was once employed by the Heavenly Chrysanthemum, Threatjewel was only hired by the Five Xiang Association and became the other party's hired thug. In this case, whether or not the person who helped Threatjewel with the transformation was a member of the Five Xiang Association also needed to be carefully considered. I just came back and there are already a lot of things to do. Chapter 2107. The ambush came to an end just like that. In front of the Holy Abodes Plaza, the Holy Abodes guards were organizing people to put out the fire, gradually extinguishing the flames that Xiaoshi had ignited with the incendiary bombs. Noah, Mugung, Elysian, and Xiaoshi, along with Tina, re-entered the Holy Abodes guest hall. Seriously, where have you been these 3 years? Mugung put her hands on her hips and threw a tantrum at Noah, as if she was accusing him. You haven't made a single call, you haven't sent back a single message. Even your whereabouts are a complete mystery. Even the guild's intelligence department didn't have a clue, and the various countries in the world couldn't find a trace of you. Those who don't know would really think that you were swallowed by some protozoan. When Mugung was throwing a tantrum, Xiaoshi and Tina also stood on his left and right, and they had no intention of mediating at all. They looked at Noah with one of their eyes full of blame, and the other full of indignation. 3 years ago, no matter whether it was Xiaoshi or Tina, although they were both frigid and muddle-headed, the only thing they had in common was that they were very close to Noah, and very clingy to Noah. But now neither Xiaoshi nor Tina spoke up for Noah, clearly worried that Noah had really met with some mishap, which was why they were so angry when they saw him again. Even the more docile Elysian chose not to speak up for Noah at this time, only sitting there, staring at Noah, as if waiting for Noah to give an explanation. In response, Noah could only smile bitterly. Am I not back now? That one sentence caused the expressions of all the girls to become a little colder. I say, President Noah, Mugung said with a fake smile. Do you know that your words make you sound like a heartless man? You've been wandering around outside for so long, and that's the only explanation you can come back with? What heartless man? Noah rolled his eyes. You're not my wives. I'm just a hands-off boss, right? Xiaoshi and Tina glanced at each other upon hearing this, and the holy heavenly child's expression became even more indescribable. Meanwhile, Mugung exploded. It's because you've become a hands-off manager that I've had to work so hard for the past 3 years. Mugung slammed his hands on the table in front of Noah and glared at Noah. You know I'm not your wife, and yet you've thrown your home to me to take care of. Do you think it's easy for me to help you build a fairyland? Okay. I know you've worked hard. I'll definitely give you a satisfactory compensation later, okay? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pressed Mugung's shoulder and pushed her back to her seat. What's the matter? Let's talk about it at home, okay? Not your wife's housekeeper? Noah's teasing words made Mugung grit her teeth in anger. Tina, Xiaoshi, you've worked hard too. Noah turned to the two girls and reached out to pat their heads. I'm sorry for throwing so many things at you. Under Noah's affectionate gesture, the resentment in Tina and Xiaoshi's hearts dissipated quite a bit, replaced by the attachment to Noah that had been hidden deep in their hearts for the past 3 years. Please don't say that, brother. Tina smiled at Noah. You've changed my fate as a dirty assassin, and let me find a true home. Compared to the shameful work I've done before, the things I've done in the past 3 years really aren't hard at all. I think so too. Xiaoshi's expression didn't change, but his eyes were fixed on Noah. If it weren't for the president, I might have died long ago, not to mention getting a new life. I'm very satisfied with my current life, and I don't think it's hard at all. That's good. Noah patted Tina and Xiaoshi's heads affectionately. I'll have a good chat with you later. Now let me talk about business. With that, Noah glanced at Holy Son of Heaven. Sensing Noah's gaze, Holy Son of Heaven immediately understood that Noah's words were also directed at him, and his heartbeat quickened. What? Only Mugung threw a tantrum. I'm just complaining, I'm not really blaming him. Looking at Mugung's tantrum, Noah really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When he saw Mugung on TV, Noah thought that this orphan of the Tentong family had changed a lot, and compared to 3 years ago, she was much more mature in all aspects. Now Noah knew that in fact, although this girl was mature, some aspects still hadn't changed. It was exactly the same as 3 years ago. Okay. Noah became serious and asked such a sentence. What is that Wuxiang Association? Everyone restrained the expression on their faces and became serious. Then Mugung spoke. Actually, we don't know the origin of this so-called Wuxiang Association. You don't know? Noah was a little stunned. Undoubtedly, when the terrorist leader mentioned the Wuxiang Association, Mugging and Holy Son of Heaven had a reaction. How could they not know the origin of the other party? Holy Son of Heaven didn't know if he saw what Noah was thinking, but he said so. The reason why President Tentong and I know the existence of the Wuxiang Association is because since a year ago, the members of this organization have been active in various countries around the world, and they have been carrying out unknown criminal actions. Moreover, our guild and the Wuxiang Association have had many conflicts in this year, which caused us a lot of losses. Mugging continued Holy Son of Heaven's words. I tried my best to get the intelligence department to collect information on this organization, but the information collected was very limited. At present, I only know that the members of this organization have pentagrams decorated with feathers on their bodies. Moreover, the more feathers they have, the higher their status in the organization. Mugging's words reminded Noah of the tattoo branded on the terrorist leader's neck. He remembered that the tattoo seemed to be decorated with a pair of feathers. In other words, the terrorist leader's level in the Wuxiang Association was 2 wings, which was only 1 level higher than the most basic member. Is there no way to confirm who is behind this organization? Noah asked. Do you only know the organization's hierarchy and member characteristics? There is no way to confirm, at least for now. The person behind the Wuxiang Association has not been confirmed. Mugging replied. The only information that can be confirmed is that the top operatives in this organization have 5 wings tattooed on their body, and it seems that there is more than one person. Other than that, there is no way to confirm the authenticity of the information. There is no way to confirm the authenticity of the information. Noah closed his eyes, then immediately opened them again, and asked very abruptly. Then, in this information, is there a part of the highest person in charge related to the Mechanized Soldier Project? The highest person in charge related to the Mechanized Soldier Project? The girls suddenly froze. In order to fight against Protozoa, the plan to use the power of Ryum to create the strongest soldiers, the Mechanized Soldier Project. The highest people in charge of this project were the 4 scientists who were known as having the smartest minds in the world. And these 4 scientists were the following people. The highest person in charge of the Australian branch, Obelisk, Arthur Shannock. The highest person in charge of the American branch next, Ayn Rand. The highest person in charge of the Japanese branch, New Human Creation Project, Muroto Jean. And the highest person in charge of the German commander's Mechanized Soldier Project, Albrecht Grunewald. Because they had the smartest minds in the world, these 4 people in charge of the Mechanized Soldier Project were also known as the 4 Wise Men. Rintaro was the mechanical soldier created by the highest person in charge of the Japanese branch, New Human Creation Project, Muroto Jean. Hina was the mechanical soldier created by the highest person in charge of the American branch next, Ayn Rand. Therefore, the people present were no strangers to the highest person in charge of the Mechanized Soldier Project. The question was, why did Noah ask this question? When Mugging, Shengzi, and Xiashi were puzzled, Hina explained for everyone. Before the attack began, the people who led me away were 2 mechanical soldiers. Mugging and Shengzi's expression changed. Chapter 2108. Both Mugging and Seiko were the supreme commanders of their respective regions. Therefore, no one knew better than Mugging and Seiko what the appearance of the 2 mechanical soldiers meant. In the past, in order to defeat the Protozoa, the 4 scientists known as the 4 Wise Men gathered together and launched the Mechanized Soldier Project, intending to use it to fight against the Protozoa and save mankind. However, after the cursed child was confirmed, the project was disbanded. The reason was simple. It was because it cost a lot to build a mechanical soldier. Take Rintaro for example. His metal prosthetic limbs were made from suanai. Not to mention the labor required in the manufacturing process, just the suanai metal alone required a lot of money. Although suanai was only an alloy, in the current era where the protozoa were rampant, suanai was a precious metal that even protozoa with a level 5 regenerative ability had a chance of eliminating. Its value was definitely much more expensive than gold of the same amount. Just think about it. Even if gold was used to build a right hand and a right foot, It would still require a lot of money, right? If it were superalloy, which was even more valuable than gold, just the materials required to create a mechanical soldier like Rintaro's would already be extremely expensive, not to mention the labor and technology required to create it. Noah didn't even know which tycoon had the ability to spend so much money to gather so many superalloy metals and build an entire human body, transforming that useless piece of trash, bodyguard Jua, into a mechanical soldier. One could only imagine how much money was needed to build a mechanical soldier. The cursed child, on the other hand, was born with power beyond the scope of human beings. In comparison, if there was a cursed child that didn't need to be cultivated, naturally, no one would think that it was worthwhile to spend money on the production of mechanical soldiers. Therefore, the Mechanized Soldier Project, which was once created by the 4 smartest minds in the world, was naturally announced as a failure. All the research institutes were disbanded, and the mechanical soldiers that had been produced were dismissed. Now almost all of the mechanical soldiers that had been produced had become facilitators, leading powerful initiators to form police partners. In the IP ranking, most of the facilitators among the high-ranking police partners were mechanical soldiers. Li Qingyin, for example, had been ranked 134th on the IP rankings a few years ago. Now he was almost in the top 30. Take Rintaro for example. After 3 years of hard work and training, he was now ranked 7th on the IP rankings. He was definitely much stronger than before. Tina, on the other hand, had combined the 2 superpowers of the cursed child and the mechanical soldiers, making her the strongest initiator. Under such circumstances, the Wuxiang Association was able to send out 2 mechanical soldiers. Either they were hired like the Celestial Chrysanthemum Prime Minister, or the organization has one of the 4 sages. Mugung frowned and looked at Noah. It's very likely that they're just hired. Indeed, most people would think that way, Noah said coolly. However, among the 2 mechanical soldiers, one of them is an excellent bodyguard. Mugung and Xia Shixian were first stunned, and then stood up in surprise. The Holy Son of Heaven was even more stunned, and at a loss of what to do. After all, the bodyguard was once the captain of the Holy Son of Heaven's bodyguard team. Moreover, he was the culprit that caused Noah to not participate in the 3rd Battle of Tokyo, and almost caused the Tokyo area to be destroyed by the Protozoa army. Therefore, if it was just a name, I believe that no one would forget this guy. Especially the Holy Son of Heaven. He saw Noah kill the bodyguard right in front of him. So you're saying that the bodyguard survived because he was mechanized? The Holy Son of Heaven clenched his hands and looked at Noah. You suspect that it was the people from the Wuxiang Association who mechanized the bodyguard and used him as a combat force in this attack. Otherwise, now that the plan has stopped, no one would continue to produce mechanical soldiers out of the original intention of saving humanity, right? Noah glanced at Tina's direction. The person in charge of America's Next restarted the plan without permission, and even sent the cursed child to the operating table to create a mechanical soldier that was more powerful than a pure human. But he's already dead. Tina lowered her head and fell silent. Noah reached out and patted Tina's head in silent consolation before continuing, "Don't worry. As for the bodyguard Juarun, he was killed by me 3 years ago. Now that he has reappeared as a mechanical soldier, it must be one of the 4 sages who initiated the plan without permission, and threw him into the attack launched by the 5 Xiang Association. Therefore, I think that there is a possibility that one of the 4 sages is in the 5 Xiang Association." Mugung and the Holy Son of Heaven looked at each other, and fell into a state of shock. Only Xiashi, the cursed child who was known as the think tank, said this in the face of Noah's speculation. "President, do you think that the person in charge of Japan's new human creation plan, Mugung Jin, is also a suspect?" "I don't know." Noah shook his head and looked at the Holy Son of Heaven. "However, 3 years ago, Rintaro told me that Mugung Jin was in the Tokyo area. Now that 3 years have passed, Mugung Jin should still be in the Tokyo area, right?" As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes were focused on the Holy Son of Heaven. Under everyone's gaze, the Holy Son of Heaven calmed down after the initial panic and nodded at Noah. Dr. Mugung is indeed still in the Tokyo area. According to the information, Rodaro-san's prosthetic arm and Ms. Tina Sprinter's reconnaissance aircraft were both maintained by Dr. Mugung. Yes. Tina nodded and confirmed the Holy Son of Heaven's words. My Sandfeld was indeed maintained by Dr. Mugung, so I would meet with Dr. Mugung every once in a while. The same goes for Rodaro-san. Indeed, Rodaro-san used to meet with Dr. Mugung regularly. Although I have never met Dr. Mugung, I have heard a lot of rumors from Rodaro-san, Mugung said hesitantly. As far as I know, although Dr. Mugung is a little weird, he shouldn't be the kind of person who would do unspeakable things. That's what I thought too, big brother. Tina turned to Noah with a serious expression. I don't think Dr. Mugung is a suspect. Even if he's not a suspect, Mugung must know more about the other people in charge of the plan than us, Noah said. So, I think it's necessary to meet with Dr. Mugung. Everyone pondered for a while, and then nodded. Oh right. Noah thought of something and said to the Holy Son of Heaven. In the attack just now, the body of the long-necked dragon wasn't completely burned. Get someone to collect a small part of it and burn the rest. Also, collect the firearms and ammunition used by the terrorists. Hearing Noah's words, Elysian immediately understood what he meant. You want Dr. Mugung to analyze the long-necked dragon? That's right, there are some things that are worth paying attention to, Noah said with a shrug. As for the firearms and ammunition collected, I'll get the young lady of the Sima family to analyze it for me. What? Mugung stood up abruptly and shouted at Noah. You're going to ask Wei Weaver? Is there a need to be so surprised? Noah's mouth twitched. After all, it's a matter of weapons. Isn't it natural to ask the young lady of the world's largest weapons company? I don't agree. Mugung grabbed Noah's shoulder and shook it desperately. Listen, Noah, you can't go see that snake woman. You finally came back. I don't want you to disappear again. Why would I disappear if I go see Wei Weaver? Isn't that obvious? That snake woman will definitely eat you alive. She's not a scourge. No, she's a scourge, the most ferocious scourge in the world. If you come into contact with her, you will be infected and become one of her kind. Isn't that cursing Wei Weaver as a primitive animal? That's why you can't go see her. I've already posted a request in the guild for the S-class police to deal with that monster. It's okay, it'll be over soon. What do you think the guild is? Chapter 2109. Noah had to repeat again that Mugung really didn't change at all. Even if the childishness on the outside had completely faded and he became very mature, the inner childishness was still retained. It had been 3 years, but when it came to Weaver, Mugung still had a bitter and agitated look. This made Noah really begin to doubt whether it was a wise choice to let Mugung handle the guild. Noah could only be glad that now that Fairy Tail had the ability to become the world's overlord, Mugung was also entangled with all kinds of things. He was so busy that he didn't have time to care about personal grudges. Otherwise, with Mugung's hatred for Weaver, it was really possible for him to abuse his power for personal gain and lead the entire fairy tale to flatten the Sima family and eliminate Weaver. In the end, in a flurry, Hina and Xiaoshi finally stopped and planned to imprison Noah with handcuffs. They didn't want to let Noah see Mugung. And because of Mugung's disturbance, the original serious business couldn't be discussed. So many problems were not mentioned. For example, during the attack, the question of how the military helicopter used by the terrorists was able to smuggle the long-necked protozoa into the Tokyo area had yet to be solved. Of course, this problem was no longer a problem that Noah and the others needed to pay attention to, but as the ruler of the Tokyo area, Shengzi needed to pay attention to it. Therefore, after Mugung's disturbance, the following matters became somewhat unimportant. Then Mugung was taken away by Hina and Xiaoshi. Not sure if it was intentional, the 3 girls didn't find Noah to leave together, but let Noah stay in the holy residence alone with Shengzi. Noticing that it was suddenly 2 people alone, Shengzi lowered his head and rubbed his hands nervously. After 3 seconds, he immediately surrendered. I'll let people collect the long-necked dragon's body and the terrorists' guns and ammunition. You go to my room first. After leaving such a sentence, Shengzi ran away without a trace. Noah could only smile bitterly, and according to his memory, he came to Shengzi's room. Kacha. With the slight sound of the door opening, the boudoir, which was regarded as an idol by the people in the Tokyo area, entered Noah's field of vision and was fully presented. It was a room that was no different from the image in Noah's memory. In other words, in 3 years, Shengzi's room didn't change much, and it was still exactly the same as 3 years ago, exactly the same as Noah's memory. The position of the bed didn't change. The position of the furniture didn't change. The position of the table and chairs didn't change. Even the fluttering curtain in front of the window didn't seem to change. It was still as white as 3 years. Shengzi's room, Shengzi's room, Shengzi's SS, Shengzi's Shengzi's right. 8. It was a piano. Shatsi's teat is. Back then, when he first came to this room, Noah was also attracted by this piano. However, it was different from now. At that time, he was only attracted because he wanted to play a song on a whim. Thinking back to that time, Noah sat down, closed his eyes, and recalled the piano skills that he hadn't used for a long time. His hands involuntarily began to play. Ding! The sound of the zither, which was as light as a bell, became the first note that Noah pressed. In the next second, an exceptionally pleasant tune began to play rhythmically, reverberating throughout the entire room. It was a song that could awaken memories. The first time he came to this room and played the piano on a whim, Noah played this song. At that time, Noah put his emotions into this song. He left the fairy tale world and established the fairy tale guild in another world. He fought against various evil forces for more than a year. At that time, Noah put his emotions into the song. He missed his hometown, missed his companions in the guild, and missed his family. Perhaps it was because of the emotional relationship. At that time, the song that Noah played was undoubtedly very beautiful. Even Shengzi was attracted to it. Come to think of it, that should be the beginning of Noah's first private communication with the Holy Son of Heaven. If it wasn't for that song, perhaps Sage Son of Heaven wouldn't have had the chance to fall in love with Noah. Thinking of this, Noah once again played this song. What he put into it was not the thoughts of his hometown or his family, but the memories of the past. He recalled the first time they met, but because of a dispute due to different standpoints, that holy girl showed selflessness. He recalled that when he defeated the Scorpio constellation, but because he couldn't deal with the main culprit, Chrysanthemum Tendo, that holy girl was speechless. He recalled that when Chiwu Zhongshuan came to Tokyo for talks, but because he couldn't understand the dictator, that holy girl showed helplessness. He recalled that when the Third Battle of Tokyo broke out, but because she couldn't get his help, that holy girl showed helplessness. Also, when he was about to leave this world and start a new journey, in order to express her feelings to him, that holy girl showed shyness and reluctance. All of these, accompanied by Noah's memories, were poured into this song. Along with each syllable, each section of rhythm, they jumped in the surrounding space. After a long time, the song full of memories gradually came to an end. Noah stopped playing and opened his eyes. In the next second, Noah saw it. At the door of the room, a holy girl wearing a wedding dress stood there, both hands covering her mouth. Her cheeks were already wet, and tears kept dripping down. Seeing this scene, Noah was not surprised, nor did he panic. His heart was filled with inconceivable calmness. Standing up, step by step, he walked in front of the Holy Son of Heaven. Noah stretched out his hand and gently wiped the girl's tears, gently asking, "Why are you crying?" The Holy Son of Heaven didn't answer immediately, but still let Noah wipe away her tears. After a long time, she squeezed out a voice with difficulty. "I don't know why, but I feel like crying." "You really don't know why?" Noah helped the Holy Son of Heaven wipe her tears as he said this. "Isn't it because you feel wrong to wait for me for so long? Is that why you're crying?" The Holy Son of Heaven shook her head and whispered, "I don't feel wronged. I just feel that it's great that you can come back." This one sentence expressed all the feelings in the girl's heart. Noah silently wiped away the tears on the girl's face, then reached out his hand and gently hugged the country's head of state, who was idolized by the people of Tokyo and even other regions. The Holy Son of Heaven stopped crying. Her face slightly reddened, but she didn't resist. She obediently snuggled into Noah's arms, listening to his heartbeat. She felt an unprecedented sense of happiness spreading throughout her heart. Then Noah spoke. Although I don't think there's a need to ask, but in order to prevent this from being just my wishful thinking, let me ask. Unfortunately, this time, the Holy Son of Heaven shook her head. Please don't ask anything. The Holy Son of Heaven closed her eyes and said very peacefully. Because you're definitely not wishful thinking. Is that so? Noah hugged the Holy Son of Heaven and whispered in her ear. You don't regret it? I know that you have a lot of secrets, and I also know that you have a lot of things that I don't know. The Holy Son of Heaven answered without hesitation. But even if you tell me that you're not a human, I still won't regret it. At this moment, Noah knew that it was useless to say anything more. Thus, Noah gently lifted the girl's chin, and in her slightly panicked eyes, he stole her first kiss. MMM. The helpless whimper dissipated into the air, and a second later, it turned into rapid breathing. The girl was helplessly captured by the domineering man's lips, struggling to no avail. In the end, she could only shyly close her eyes and immerse herself in the kiss. This also meant that this relationship that was delayed for 3 years finally had a result. Chapter 21:10. The day of Noah's return was undoubtedly very long. Even for Noah, he had been busy with a lot of things on this day. First, he returned to Fairyland and witnessed the heyday of fairy tale. Then he rushed to the Tokyo area and encountered Muging's attack. Then there was the establishment of his relationship with the Holy Sun. After one thing after another, even if Noah had unlimited stamina, he still felt that this day was unusually long, and it made him feel a little tired. Especially after Noah's return, Muging had the tendency to throw all the work that the guild leader should do back to him, making Noah feel that he had just returned but did not even have time to rest. Fortunately, due to the attack, the international conference held by the various countries was postponed to 3 days later. Otherwise, the next day, Muging would definitely let Noah attend the conference as the true guild leader of Fairy Tale. In fact, Muging did have such thoughts. The news of Noah's return had spread throughout Fairyland. Now all the well-informed people already knew that the true master of Fairyland had returned. Under such circumstances, the various countries' representatives who had been on guard against Fairyland would not know that Noah had returned. Therefore, everyone began to be curious about what kind of person the guild leader of Fairy Tale, who had the ability to dominate the world, was. And was there any meaning to his return at this time? Perhaps it was because of this relationship that the various countries' representatives took the initiative to postpone the international conference. After all, in order to achieve something in the meeting, everyone needed some time to prepare in the face of Noah, who had appeared out of nowhere. They did not want to be caught off guard in the meeting when they did not know this person. In other words, although it had not been announced, almost everyone thought that Noah would attend the international conference in 3 days' time. Or rather, as the true guild leader of Fairy Tale, it would be fake if he did not attend this international conference. No matter what, anyone with a discerning eye could see that this international conference was about Fairy Tale. Therefore, it was reasonable for Noah to attend the international conference as the president. Not only did the others think so, but Mugung also thought so. Since Noah was back, it would be more appropriate to hand over the international conference to Noah. In response, Noah said helplessly, "Don't worry. Things have to be done one by one. Since the international conference is 3 days later, we have to settle the rest of the things in these 3 days." What is it? Wuxiang Association. This mysterious organization that had appeared out of nowhere, it was impossible not to know about it. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Noah, as a guild leader who had the ability to dominate the entire world, would only care about these small fries if he had nothing better to do. There were so many shady organizations in the world. How could they manage all of them? This idea was not without reason. However, this so-called Wuxiang Association was definitely not some small fries. Could small fries be able to control stage for gastronomic animals and make use of them? It could not be, right? At least in this world, let alone Noah. Even Mugung and the Holy Sun had never seen or heard of such a method to control gastronomic animals. In other words, although this Wuxiang Association had appeared out of nowhere, It had done something that no country in the world could do. Based on this alone, Noah felt that he could not ignore this mysterious organization. Even if he did not care, Fairyland was such a large territory that he needed to protect. If he did not pay attention to it, he would lose more than he gained if he fell into a trap. If Noah, who had killed countless gods, were to suffer in the hands of a group of humans who were worse than scum, then he should really find a place to end his own life. Noah did not want to look down on a group of ants hiding in the dark. No one knew if they would suddenly crawl out and bite him. Because of this, Noah felt that he should first meet one of the strongest minds in this world. However, in order to prevent yesterday's attack from happening again, Noah needed to arrange some backup plans. In the living room of the holy residence, the holy son Mugung, Hina, and Xiashir looked at each other. In front of the group of 4 girls, Aster, Athena, Orpheus and Lilith, the 4 petite girls, stood in a line and looked at the holy son and the others with the same expressionless face. Looking at the 4 little girls, the holy son Mugung, Hina, and Xiashir looked at each other. The holy son was the first to speak and asked tentatively, "These children are..." Noah scratched his face and said to his 4 contracted partners, "How should I put it? Introduce yourselves." Hearing this, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith looked up at the same time. Aster said expressionlessly, "I am Master Sword." Athena said faintly, "I have some bad luck with this guy." Orpheus said concisely, "He's family with Noah." Lilith tilted her head and said directly, "Someone who has always been with Noah." The unique self-introductions did not make the crowd feel relieved. Instead, it made them look at each other in dismay once again. "Okay, my bad." Noah covered his face and said helplessly, "Just think of it as the initiator that I found in these 3 years." This was enough to explain everything. However, Hina had a reaction to this. "I can't pretend that I didn't hear this." Tina, who would become sleepy during the day due to the owl factor, instantly woke up. She took a step forward and made a sound. "Brother's initiator should be me." Tina's words caused Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith to turn their gazes toward her. "Oh," Athena smiled. "So you want to steal Master from us, right?" Master? Hina's expression became interesting. So that's how it is?" Mugging and Xiashir were shocked. They took a few steps back and looked at Noah in a completely different light. "So you've been playing this game for the past 3 years? Even Elysian Tianzi looked at Noah with a worried expression. "Do you like this kind of game?" "I have to say, I admire your imagination." Noah's eyes twitched. "Let me tell you first, I haven't done anything wrong. Also, I didn't let these children out to make you think of Pian Pian. I wanted them to protect you." "Protect us?" Elysian Tianzi and Mugging understood what Noah meant. "Don't be fooled by their looks. As guards, there's no one more reliable than them in this world." Noah shrugged and looked at Aster and the others. "Aster, Athena, you'll be in charge of protecting Elysian Tianzi. Orpheus, Lilith, you'll be in charge of protecting Mugung. Is that okay? What about Master?" Aster gazed at Noah. His pair of purple eyes flickered with a mysterious luster as he spoke. "Master doesn't need us anymore?" She was still the same as before, able to speak so ambiguously with just one sentence. "I'll go out for a while." Noah patted Aster's head. "You guys stay and protect Elysian Tianzi and Mugung." Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith raised their heads and looked at Elysian Tianzi and Mugung. After a while, they nodded and agreed. As for Elysian Tianzi and Mugung, they looked at Noah. Mugung said directly, "Do you want to see Dr. Mugung?" "Yes." Noah nodded and patted Tina's shoulder. "So Tina, can you be my tour guide and guard for now?" An ecstatic smile appeared on Tina's face. Noah exchanged a look with Elysian Tianzi. Elysian Tianzi looked at Noah and said softly, "Be careful." Noah nodded. Chapter 21:11. The scorching sun shone mercilessly in the sky, illuminating the bustling streets. Noah and Tina were walking together on a street that was bustling with pedestrians. "Heh." Tina seemed to be in a very good mood. She hummed a song while holding on to Noah's hand like a little girlfriend. Her face didn't have the confusion that would appear during the day, nor did it have the coldness that would appear during the night. Instead, there was only the cheerfulness and happiness of an ordinary little girl. After coming out of the holy residence, Tina had been in this state. Noah allowed Tina, who was in high spirits, to hold his hand. Looking at Tina, who was in a very good mood, he couldn't help but smile and ask, "What made you so happy?" "Of course it's going out with Big Brother," Tina answered without hesitation. "Whenever I think of Big Brother by my side, I'm very happy." "Is that so?" The smile on Noah's face more or less disappeared and he sighed. "But we didn't come out to play. We have serious business to do." "It's okay." Tina's mood didn't lower at all, and she smiled at Noah. "As long as I can be with Big Brother, I don't mind going anywhere." Saying this, Tina even tightened her grip on Noah's arm as if she wanted to increase the persuasiveness of her words. Her still childish face was filled with a happy smile. Looking at Tina like this, Noah felt a sense of apology in his heart. Undoubtedly, it was he who brought this child into fairy tale and changed this child's life without permission. However, he willfully left her and made her work hard for the career and dreams that he left behind. This made Noah feel very apologetic. Although this was for Tina's good and Tina herself was very satisfied with her current life, but looking at Tina's happy expression, Noah felt that he still owed this girl. Thinking of this, Noah began to seriously look at Tina. Compared to 3 years ago, the current Tina didn't seem to have changed much. A head of long silver hair that draped over her shoulders gently flowed. A pair of blue eyes that were as beautiful as water ripples. A childish face that was as cute as a doll. A dress that embellished the charm of a young girl. Other than being a little taller than before, Tina didn't change much. After all, the difference between a 10-year-old girl and a 13-year-old girl wasn't that big. Even if there was a saying that a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, Tina still hadn't reached that age. In another 2 or 3 years, the changes would probably be much greater than now. However, compared to the first time they met, the current Tina was undoubtedly much brighter than before. At least, that was the case when she was with Noah. Hence, at this moment, in the eyes of outsiders, Tina was an extremely cute foreign girl, and she attracted the gazes of many passers-by. "That child is so cute." "Yeah. And she's a foreigner." "She's like a doll." "I want to hug." "Yeah. But why do I feel like I've seen this child somewhere before?" The whispers of the passers-by were clearly heard by Noah, and he cursed in his heart. Unlike before when she was only active as an assassin in the inner world, the current Tina was known to all as the ace of the fairy tale, the world's strongest initiator. Under such circumstances, Tina had also been on TV many times and must have received a lot of attention. If she was recognized here, it would be a little troublesome, wouldn't it? After all, although the Tokyo area was an ally of fairyland, there were still many humans in this area who hated the cursed child. Who knew if there would be someone with brain damage who would suddenly run out to cause trouble? With this in mind, Noah patted Tina's hand and said softly, "Let's pick up the pace." Hearing this, Tina was slightly taken aback, but immediately noticed the situation around them and nodded understandingly. However, Noah still clearly noticed the slight disappointment in Tina's eyes. Seeing this, Noah smiled helplessly and patted Tina's head. "Don't look so disappointed. We'll come out together again next time." Tina's eyes lit up and she smiled again. With Noah in tow, she quickened her pace and walked forward. Not long after, the two came to the front of a hospital. It was a hospital affiliated to a university. Under Tina's lead, Noah walked into the affiliated hospital, and the strong smell of disinfectant immediately wafted into his nose. In the hospital, many doctors in white coats and nurses in nurse uniforms saw Noah, but when they saw Tina beside Noah, their expressions immediately changed, and they chose to stay away. It seemed that the doctors and nurses here had some understanding of Tina's identity. Tina seemed to have gotten used to this. She walked up to the counter and asked the lady at the counter, "I'm sorry, I'm looking for my room doctor." "The doctor is at the usual place." It seemed like it was not the first time the receptionist had dealt with Tina, and she said directly, "Just like before, just go there." "Understood." Tina nodded, then returned to Noah's side and held Noah's hand with a smile on her face. Big brother, come with me. Noah naturally didn't have any objections to this, and he followed Tina toward the northern staircase. Maybe it was Noah's illusion. From here on, the number of pedestrians seemed to decrease a lot. And at the end of the corridor at the stairs, there was a square cave on the ground. At first glance, it looked like a trap. But upon closer inspection, there was actually a steep flight of stairs inside the cave. Standing in front of the stairs, Noah only felt a strange smell faintly coming from inside, which made Noah frown slightly. Unfortunately, Noah was not unfamiliar with this strange smell, because it was the unique smell of corpses. Tina. Noah said with a strange expression. Is this a morgue? Yes. Tina also let out a bitter laugh. Doctors usually live in the morgue. Noah's mouth twitched. The world's most powerful brain lives in a morgue? What kind of hobby is this? With this thought in mind, Noah followed Tina down the stairs and entered an underground tunnel that had a bit of a haunted house atmosphere. And at the end of the tunnel, there was a door carved with an exaggerated demon statue. Looking at this door, Noah began to confirm that this was definitely a strange person. Only Tina, with a look of indifference, pushed open the door and walked in. What appeared in front of them was a dark but surprisingly spacious room. There was an operating table, a desk, sophisticated instruments, a blackboard full of formulas, and so on in the room. It did not feel like a morgue, but more like an operating room or a research institute. Noah could even see that there was a corpse that had been embalmed lying on the operating table here. And there were also culture tanks filled with the corpses of primitive animals, which made his hair stand on end. If someone said that this was hell, there would definitely be people who would be willing to believe it, right? Noah could not help but say. Would anyone really be willing to live here? I don't think so. Tina's tone was full of uncertainty. But the doctor is a very strange person. In other words, the doctor really liked to live in a place like this. Noah was speechless. As the saying went, there was only a fine line between a genius and a lunatic, and a smart person often meant that they were also strange people. One of the strongest minds in the world was definitely an out-and-out weirdo. That's strange. Is the doctor not here? Tina began to look around as she walked in. Doctor, are you here? Noah followed behind Tina as she called out to him. His gaze swept over the culture tanks that contained the carcasses of the primitive intestinal animals. Slap! Suddenly, a hand grabbed Noah's foot. A sense of horror immediately rushed from Noah's feet to his spine. Noah turned around abruptly, lowered his head, and looked under himself. As a result, a face covered by long bangs was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Just as Noah was about to throw a punch, the face spoke. Is there anything to eat? Noah almost broke down. Chapter 21:12. In the dim morgue, a woman in a white coat was sitting in front of an office desk. She was desperately eating the white rice in the lunchbox in front of her, covering her entire face with rice grains. Noah and Tina sat side by side in front of each other, and both of them fell into a state of speechlessness at the sight of each of them gorging themselves like hungry ghosts. Especially Noah. Not only was he speechless, but he also had an indescribable feeling in his heart. The woman in front of him was eating and drinking like a starving ghost. If one only looked at her appearance, she was simply sloppy to the extreme. His skin had a sickly pallor. Her bangs were messy and long, covering half of her eyes. Undoubtedly, she had a pretty face. However, her eye sockets were slightly sunken, and there were dark circles around her eyes. If it weren't for the fact that she was wearing a white coat, no one would believe that this woman was one of the smartest people in the world. That's right. This woman was Miroto Jean. She was one of the people in charge of the Mechanical Soldier Project, the chief doctor of Rintaro, and a great scientist who was determined to save mankind with mechanical soldiers. Is this what they mean by don't judge a book by its cover? Even though I had the same thought when I first met the doctor, it's a little rude of you to say that, big brother. Noah and Tina both wore wry smiles on their faces as they looked on at Miroto, and their emotions were extremely complex. After an unknown amount of time, Miroto finally finished her lunchbox. Phew, Jean let out a long sigh of relief. I'm finally alive. Noah and Hina looked at each other. Doctor. Hina raised her hand and asked meekly, how long has it been since you last ate? How long will it take? Miroto placed the lunchbox on the table and asked without any hesitation. It's been about a week? 1 week. Tina was taken aback. Then why didn't you go out to eat? You want me to go out? Miroto Jean raised an eyebrow and said without hesitation. Then I might as well die here. Tina was rendered speechless by this invincible statement. The corners of Noah's eyes twitched. It's just going out for a meal. Why do you have to risk your life? Isn't that obvious? Muito Kino said sternly. Today's world is completely finished. Everywhere is filled with the disgusting smell of men's sweat and the disgusting smell of women's perfume. Moreover, there's also sunlight. If I'm exposed to it, I'd rather die here. Die from exposure to light? Noah felt that his worldview had been broadened. And it's a serious case of squatting at home? Anyway, I have a computer. Even if I don't step out, I can know what's going on outside. Since that's the case, what's the point of going out? Muito Kino waved her hand in disgust. My world only needs this little bit of land. I don't need anything else. What's important is. Noah and Tina unconsciously leaned forward. Then Muito Kino smiled. What's important is that it's very tiring to go out, so I don't want to go out. Tina almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. Noah's lips twitched, and he turned his head away as if he couldn't bear to look at her. So, she wasn't just a weirdo. She was also a weirdo. At this moment, Muito Kino seemed to have noticed Noah. She looked at Noah for 3 seconds before losing interest. I thought Tina would bring me a corpse. What a bummer. Do you want to see a corpse more than a living person? There have been too few deaths recently. Instead, there are more and more corpses of primitive animals. I almost don't have any new corpses to report here. They're all those stinky primitive animals. Don't human corpses stink? When will I get a new corpse? I want to find a boyfriend. Hurry up and bring it to me. Is it okay to find a corpse to be a boyfriend? Oh right, a lot of terrorists died yesterday. Apparently, they were all killed by attacking Magung. Why don't you bring them here? I'll play with them. I'll dissect them. She was definitely going to say play with them, right? Seeing Muito Kino complaining, Noah felt like his ability to complain had skyrocketed. Even Tina didn't know what to say. She looked at Noah as if she was about to cry. I'm sorry, brother. Even though I've been with Dr. Muito for 3 years, I still can't get used to it. It's okay, it's good that you're not used to it. If he got used to it, he would definitely become the second weirdo that people couldn't bear to look at. Noah patted Tina's head comfortingly. He then looked at Muito Kino, who was laughing at him. You're Dr. Muito, right? I've heard a lot about you. I feel that in this era many people have begun to gradually forget about me. Because I don't go out, and I'm not as passionate about research as before. Now I'm just a doctor who likes to dissect corpses. Muito Kino glanced at Noah. On the contrary, I feel like I should say that I've heard a lot about you. Oh, Noah raised his eyebrows. Do you know me? Although I don't want my memory to be so good, at least I can still remember things that happened a few years ago. Muito Kino looked at Noah with a half-smile. The founder of the famous Cursed Child Shelter, the most primitive person who changed the world, and now the leader of a civilian guild that has the ability to become the world's overlord. You should have heard of him before, right? Muito Kino turned around, poured a cup of hot coffee from the kettle, and said, Besides, the little brat and the little girl who often come to my place have mentioned your name more than once. I'm still thinking about when I'll have the chance to meet you. I must see what you look like. The person who started the new era. The person who started the new era. Noah chuckled. Aren't you flattering me a little too much? Being overly modest isn't a good thing. Muito Kino poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Noah, and the other to Tina. I believe you know better than I do how filthy this world had become because of hatred and darkness. Your appearance had made this world that was as dark as sewage much cleaner. Though it is still murky, you at least brought hope. Your fairyland is unquestionably the beginning of a new era, and you have made it develop with that as its goal. Am I wrong? Half right and half wrong. Noah took the coffee and sipped it nonchalantly. Perhaps I want the children of fairyland to be reborn, praying that there would be a day where people would forget their hatred with that place as a starting point. However, Doctor, it's not the world that's dirty, but humans themselves. You're mistaken about that. Humans don't represent the world, you know? Interesting way of putting it. Muido Kino looked at Noah with interest and said meaningfully. But it's because humans can't represent the world that the protogut animals appeared, right? The atmosphere in the morgue instantly turned heavy. All right, let's not talk about these meaningless things. Muido Kino crossed her legs and looked at Tina. Since you've brought this brother of yours, you don't want me to defend Samfeld, do you? Yes. Tina nodded. Actually, it's your big brother who wants to talk to you. That's to be expected. She turned around and looked at Noah. Her eyes, which were covered by her bangs, slowly narrowed. Is it related to the attack yesterday? Most of it. Noah put down the coffee in his hand and met Muido Kino's gaze. It's like this. Therefore, Noah told Muido Kino everything that happened last night. Listening to Noah's explanation, Muido Kino's expression became a little solemn. When Noah mentioned Juyu, her pupils slightly shrank, and she fell into silence. A protogut animal that can be controlled by humans, and a mechanical soldier that can be reborn with just a piece of brain fragment? Muido Kino mocked. So that's where you went, Albrecht Grunewald. Chapter 21:13. Noah and Hina both reacted when they heard Mudo Jin's sarcastic tone. This name. Hina raised her eyebrows and said tentatively. It's the name of the person in charge of the mechanized soldier project, right? That's right. Mudo Jin's sarcastic tone didn't weaken. Albrecht Grunewald, who was in charge of the entire mechanized soldier project, and was in charge of all of us. That's the guy I just mentioned. Then why are you mentioning him now? Noah frowned. Could it be that he's the one who mechanized Jueyuan? Are you trying to say that I'm baseless? Mudo Jin curled her lips. But I'm certain that he's the one who mechanized Jueyuan. Undoubtedly, Mudo Jin's words were baseless, but Noah's frown deepened. Looking at Noah's expression, Muido Kino suddenly said. At the beginning of the mechanized soldier project, Arthur and I all had our own research institutes in Japan, the United States and Australia. You should know this, right? Of course. After all, after the mechanized soldier project was launched, the project was given another name by the person in charge. The Japan branch was called the New Humanity Creation Project. The United States branch was called Next. The Australia branch was called Obelisk. Of course, as the people in charge of the three countries, Mudo Jin, Ayn Rand, and Arthur Shannock all had their own research institutes in their own countries. In that case, I want to ask you. Mudo Jin looked straight at Noah and said, have you ever heard of the person in charge of Germany setting up his own research institute in Germany? Noah was stunned for a moment. And then he suddenly understood. That's right. The first three people in charge all had their own research institutes and projects. Only Grunewald, in this regard, only mentioned that he was the highest person in charge of the entire project, and that he belonged to the country. There had never been any mention of a German branch project or research institute. That's why that guy has always been weird. Muido Kino clicked her tongue. He didn't set up a research institute in his own country. Instead, he set up his own research facilities in Japan, the United States, and Australia to carry out the mechanization program. Therefore, in Japan there were also people who were transformed by Grunewald. A Japanese cyborg. Noah's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Looks like you've already figured it out. Muido Kino confirmed Noah's guess. It's that mechanical soldier called Leech Shadow-in. What? Tina was shocked. In other words, the Leech Shadow-in was not modified by you, but by Professor Grunewald? That's right. Miroto nodded. Although the Leech Shadow-in is nominally a mechanical soldier of the New Human Creation Plan, and it was once part of the 787th Mechanized Special Unit of the Eastern Ground Self-Defense Force, it is not under my jurisdiction. It is under the jurisdiction of Grunewald. In other words, the Leech Shadow-Een was most likely sent by Grunewald to participate in the attack. Since the Leech Shadow-Een was with the Leech Shadow-Een, it was very likely that the Leech Shadow-Een was transformed by Grunewald. But this doesn't seem to be convincing, right? Noah pondered for a moment and said, even if the Leech Shadow-Een was transformed by Professor Grunewald, and the Leech Shadow-Een was with the Leech Shadow-Een, it still can't be confirmed that the transformation was done by Grunewald. No, I can be sure, Muito Kino said impatiently. Let's put aside the operation of injecting the protozoan virus into the human brain fragment, and using the protozoan's regenerative ability to restore the entire brain. Just the technology of putting a human brain into a mechanical body, and smoothly connecting the brain to the mechanical body, so that the neurons can be transmitted to every corner of the mechanical body, and move like one's own body is something I don't have the confidence to do. You don't have the confidence to do it? Tina was shocked. You mean? Noah had a flash of inspiration, and he understood Muito Kino's thoughts. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Muito Kino spread her hands. Since I don't have the confidence to do it, and Arthur won't be able to do it either. Only Grunewald is obviously more talented than the three of us. I've stolen his mechanical soldier blueprint before, but I couldn't understand a part of the blueprint at all. I can prove it. Now even Tina understood why Muito Kino was so sure that the Leech Shadow-Yin's mechanical surgery was done by Grunewald. It was because among the four wise men, only Grunewald's technology was better than the other three. Therefore, since the large-scale mechanical surgery that even Muito Kino didn't have the confidence to do appeared on the Leech Shadow-Een, it could only be Grunewald's doing. Also, I can't control the protozoa either, but now it appeared. So the only person who can do this is Grunewald. Muito Kino concluded. This guy disappeared for so many years, and I thought he was hiding somewhere. Now it seems that he's in the so-called Wuxiang Association. As soon as Muito Kino finished speaking, the entire operating theater fell into an indescribable silence. Tina didn't say anything. She just looked at Noah. Noah also fell into silence. After a while, he raised his head and looked at Muito Kino. Can I trust you? This sentence made Muito Kino raise her eyebrows, and then she laughed out loud. Trust? Muito Kino seemed to be laughing so hard that her stomach hurt a little. She held her stomach and waved at Noah as if she couldn't help but laugh. It's better not to. In this era, the trust between people is extremely fragile. I used to be unwilling to trust anyone. After all, I've seen hell before. As one of the strongest minds in the world who once aspired to save mankind, if she didn't experience despair and saw too much hell, how could she set such an ambition? In addition, just like how Miroto Nara once stole Grunewald's technology, many people would try to get close to Miroto Nara in an attempt to steal her technology. It was natural that this outstanding scientist wouldn't be willing to trust anyone. However, looking at Muito Kino, who was holding her stomach and laughing, Noah suddenly laughed. You said that was in the past. Muito Kino's laughter came to an abrupt end. Yes, that was in the past. Muito Kino stopped laughing, and her tone became a little distant. Now, I'm just hiding in a place that doesn't see the light of day. Every day, there are corpses for me to dissect, and the kid who was kidnapped by me to hell and turned into a mechanical soldier by me. That's enough for me. Tina understood the meaning behind Muito Kino's words. This overly outstanding scientist was telling Noah that she would never perform mechanical surgeries again, nor would she want to join a mysterious organization and do something that would be despised by others. Because I've seen too much despair and hell. Muito Kino looked at Noah. While humans are praying to be saved, they have unilateral hatred, and even abuse for a group of children who can save them. They're even scheming against each other in this era. It's hopeless. I even once thought that the world was hopeless. Therefore I gave up everything and hid in this small operating theater. I only did what I liked to do, Muito Kino said to Noah. And your appearance changed the world that I once thought was hopeless. Therefore I admire you. This was probably the most serious sentence that Muito Kino had said to Noah ever since she met him. Therefore Noah understood. This sloppy doctor was actually the same as him. They both thought that mankind was hopeless, but they were also moved by mankind and returned to the position of saving mankind. However, what moved Noah was the people in Tokyo who made him feel the existence of hope. The person who moved Muito Kino should be Rintaro, right? Chapter 21:14. After coming out of the affiliated university hospital, Noah fell into deep thought as he recalled everything that happened last night, and what he said to Miroto. Brother. Hina hugged Noah's hand and spoke softly. Are you still suspicious of Dr. Muto? No, I don't suspect that doctor anymore. Noah shook his head. I think Muto Hina is telling the truth, and her guess is very accurate. Is that so? Hina let out a sigh of relief. It's great that you believe in Dr. Muto. I just think her explanation is the most convincing. Noah smiled helplessly. After all, the person in charge of the American branch is already dead. It's unlikely that the person in charge of the Australian branch would be able to retrieve the brain fragments of an incompetent guard captain that I killed in Tokyo. As for Muto Hina, she hides in the morgue all day long. It would be difficult for her to perform a large-scale surgery. Now that I think about it, Grunewald is undoubtedly the most suspicious person. You're right. Hina nodded. Also, Professor Grunewald set up a research facility in Japan, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to retrieve the brain fragments. Also, the military helicopter that transported the giraffe last night is also very suspicious. Noah touched his chin. According to the Son of Heaven's investigation, the military helicopter didn't belong to the Tokyo area, nor did it belong to any other country. It seems to be a privately made military helicopter without a serial number. It's impossible for such a helicopter to obtain an entry permit and fly into the Tokyo area, which means that the military helicopter was secretly made in the Tokyo area. Hina tilted her head. But what does that mean? It means that the other party isn't just a terrorist organization. They have sufficient technical support. Noah patted Hina's head. Although we can't be sure that it's Grunewald's doing, it's impossible to build such a military helicopter in secret without some means. Grunewald once set up a research facility here. Whether it's the site, materials, or technology, they're all guaranteed, right? Then, brother, are you sure that Professor Grunewald is in the Wuxiang Association? Hina asked in confusion. But in the end, why would the Wuxiang Association attack Ms. Mugino? There could be a lot of reasons, Noah said. For example, there's a possibility that some country commissioned the Wuxiang Association to take action. But Big Brother hasn't mentioned this possibility even once, Tina asked. Brother, did you find something? Actually, it's not difficult at all. Noah shrugged. Didn't Wood say that the Five Feathers Association had been targeting Fairy Tale since a year ago? Yeah. Hina wrinkled her little nose. In the past, when I was carrying out missions, I encountered people from the Five Wings Association several times. Every time they were targeting me. Many people in the guild have also been targeted. Moreover, the higher the IP ranking of the member, the more they would be targeted. If that's the case, then we need to think about what reason our guild has that would cause the Five Xiong Association to target us. Noah suggested. Thinking about it carefully, this time a year ago was also a hint. A year ago. Hina thought hard, but it didn't take long for her to be surprised. Speaking of a year ago, the first thing that came to mind was that the countries around the world finally realized that the number of cursed children in their countries had sharply decreased to the point that they could no longer ignore it. And then they noticed our guild, right? That's right. Noah curled his lips and smiled. It was also at that time that the countries around the world began to feel a sense of crisis, and felt that the world would be ruled by our guild, right? A sense of crisis. Hina seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that the Wuxiang Association also felt the same sense of crisis? Smart. Noah intimately pinched Hina's little nose. You weren't at the scene of the attack last night, so you might not know, but before the terrorist leader committed suicide, he said this sentence, "The world definitely belongs to us." The world definitely belongs to us. Hina's eyes widened. It can't be. The goal of the Wuxiang Association is... That's right. Noah sneered. The ultimate goal of the Wuxiang Association is to rule the world. That's why the Wuxiang Association targeted fairy tale. Because in the current situation, Fairyland's fairy tale was the most likely force to rule the world. With such an unimaginable enemy like fairy tale appearing out of nowhere, how could the Wuxiang Association, whose goal was to rule the world, not feel a sense of crisis and target fairy tale? I'm afraid the reason why this mysterious organization developed the technology to control gastronomic animals is to rule the world. Noah narrowed his eyes. If they can control gastronomic animals as they wish, then this mysterious organization will be able to destroy all the countries that resist them and establish their own hegemony. This is an organization with great ambition and potential. To think that they're researching ways to control gastronomic animals in order to rule the world. Hina said with a trembling voice. Are these people crazy? Among humans, there will always be some who daydream all day long and do whatever they can to achieve it. Noah's voice carried a hint of coldness. They never think of others, only think of themselves, causing a lot of trouble for others, and in the end, letting others solve the problems they left behind. Just like what Mudo Kino said, humans are hopeless. Then brother, what should we do? Hina looked up at Noah. Should we find this Five Xiang Association and completely annihilate it? Of course, let these rats hide in the corner and occasionally come out to bite us. We have no reason not to spray rat poison on them. Noah didn't hesitate at all. Since we're sure that they want to hurt us, then we have no reason to let them take advantage of us. Even if it's not for ourselves. Yes, even if it's not for ourselves. Hina hugged Noah's arm and smiled. That's because we fairy tale have always fought to protect our companions and family. Hearing this, Noah also smiled, squatted down, and dotingly patted Hina's head. He looked directly into Hina's eyes and said gently, I'm very happy that you can say that. If brother is happy, then I'm happy. Hina tilted her head and smiled sweetly like never before. Because everything I have already belongs to brother. Then Hina moved her head forward and kissed Noah on the lips. Noah was stunned. Ha. Hina's pretty face was slightly red, but her expression was very happy. I finally gave my first kiss to brother. You have to take responsibility? You're so mischievous. Noah smiled bitterly. At this time, Noah heard a conversation around him. Did you see it? I saw it. Should we call the police? Let's call the police, after all, it's an underage girl. Noah suddenly couldn't stay calm. It wasn't until this moment that Noah remembered. He wasn't in a room, nor was he in a deserted place. He was in front of a university hospital on the road. Noah didn't even need to look to know that the people on the road were looking at him with contempt and indifference. Immediately, Noah hurriedly said, Okay, since we've confirmed what we should confirm, then let's fulfill our promise and go shopping while we still have time. Hina's eyes immediately sparkled, and she was eager to do something. Then let's hurry and go. Tina latched onto Noah's arm as she spoke and ran forward with an elated expression on her face. Looking at Tina's pretty face that was brimming with a smile, Noah, who had only casually uttered an excuse to leave in a moment of desperation, could not find a reason to go back on his words. With a helpless and bitter smile, he allowed Tina to pull him and run forward. Chapter 21:15. After that, Noah accompanied Tina to almost the entire commercial street. In the past, when Noah had first met Tina, he had also taken Tina out for a stroll. That time was probably the first time in Tina's life that she felt human warmth. However, at that time, Yinzhu and Xiaoshi also went. In the eyes of others, it was like a brother taking three sisters out to play. But this time, there was only Noah and Tina, and it seemed that Tina was even happier than the last time. As such, Tina had completely transformed into a little girl of her age today, and she had been running around with Noah all this time. When they came to a stall selling cold drinks, the little girl would go up and directly order an ice cream and eat it with Noah. When they came to a clothing store with beautiful dresses, the little girl would go in and try on one dress after another, making the shop assistant look at Tina with love in their eyes. One could imagine how cute she was. When they were in the amusement park, the little girl would happily grab Noah's hand and rush inside to play one game after another. In the end, she even sat on the Ferris wheel. On the Ferris wheel, when Noah was not paying attention, she put her small lips on his and gave him a wave of benefits. Even when they met a child who was lost, the little girl would go over and gently comfort the child, and then ask Noah for help. This made Noah not know whether to laugh or cry, and he could only run around again to find the child's mother. In the end, when it was almost evening, Tina seemed to have finally exhausted her energy, and she followed Noah back to the holy residence. "I'm really happy today." Walking in the corridor of the holy residence, Tina held a doll that Noah gave her in her hand and smiled contentedly. "I haven't been this happy in a long time, it's all thanks to Big Brother." "As long as you're happy." Noah smiled slightly. However, I didn't expect Tina to become so playful. In Noah's memory, his impression of Tina was still from 3 years ago. At that time, due to the owl gene in her body, Tina gave off a completely different feeling during the day and at night. However, in general, in front of Noah, Tina had always been a very obedient and quiet little girl. However, after a day of fooling around, Tina had completely transformed into a mischievous young girl that matched her age. Noah was truly taken aback. Tina also seemed to feel a little embarrassed about this. Because Big Brother will definitely be very busy in the future, so I have to take advantage of this time to satisfy myself. "But are you okay?" Noah asked. "Although you once said in the past that even if you have the owl factor, you can still adjust to the time difference and move around during the day. But you were busy the whole night last night, and didn't rest at all today. Is it okay?" "It's okay." Tina seemed to want to prove something and gave Noah a smile full of energy. Since reaching domain, the activity of the protozoan virus in my body has increased a lot, and the owl factor in me has also become much more active. Even if I don't rest during the day, I will automatically adjust to the best state at night, although I will be more tired the next day. Automatically adjust to the best state? It was like the night version of the Godslayer. However, when it comes to domain, what exactly is it? Noah raised such a question. Although I've heard before that among the police officers in the same profession, a portion of the super high-ranking initiators have reached this so-called domain realm, but when I was still in charge, our guild didn't have a single child who had reached domain. After all, in the past, Fairy Tail was just a civilian organization in the Tokyo area. Even if they recruited most of the outstanding police officers and most of the outstanding cursed children in the Tokyo area. Even so, there had never been a pair of police officers in the top 100 IP rankings in the guild. It was only after Tina joined that the situation improved. Of course, at that time, Fairy Tail naturally wouldn't have the initiator who had reached the domain level. Thus, Tina was the first initiator that Noah had ever seen who had reached the domain stage. Therefore, Noah could only be considered to have a partial understanding of the state of domain. Actually, it's not difficult to understand. Tina said, "The so-called domain is a state that is reached after breaking through the growth limit point. Other than that, there are no other unknowns." Breaking through the growth limit point? Noah said thoughtfully. Just like how people break through their own limits? It's a bit similar, but the specific aspects are different. Tina organized her words and explained. Just like how humans have their own limits, the cursed children also have their own limits, but this limit depends on the protozoan virus in the body. From a human's point of view, it is the cursed child's own potential. Like Miss Yenju in the past, she basically didn't train herself. She just kept using her ability, so her speed would continue to grow and become faster and faster. Tina looked at Noah. I used to be the same. As long as I kept using my ability, by the next night, I would find that my eyesight had increased, my sniping accuracy had increased, and my condition was getting better and better. Every night, I would become stronger than the previous night. That's really against the rules. Noah couldn't help but sigh. But there is a limit, right? Yes. Tina nodded. After continuous growth, one day, we will find that no matter how we use our ability or even train ourselves, we can't improve our strength. We can only turn to honing our skills. In the past, Yanju came to Noah for help because she suddenly couldn't improve her speed, but Noah couldn't do anything about it. He could only turn to teaching Yanju combat skills to hone her combat skills, and improve her skills to improve her own strength. It was from then on that Noah asked around and learned about the existence of the domain. No matter which cursed child it is, after their ability has developed to a certain extent, they will enter a period of stagnation. From then on, they will no longer be able to improve their ability. Miss Yanju and I both encountered this problem. In the words of a doctor, it is a bottleneck. Tina said to Noah. However, just like how humans don't know how to ride bicycles, but one day they suddenly know how to ride a bicycle. When the initiator is not satisfied with their own strength and carries out strict self-discipline and training, a portion of them will eventually break through their growth limit and enter a state of regaining growth. That is the domain. Once they enter this state, not only can they regain their growth, but their growth will also be much faster than before. Therefore, there is an unbridgeable gap in strength between those who have reached the domain and those who haven't. It is absolutely impossible for those who haven't reached the domain to defeat those who have reached the domain because of this reason. The first time I reached my growth limit was before I met my big brother. Perhaps it was even earlier than Miss Yanju, Tina said. Until 2 years ago on a mission abroad, I met my younger sister who used to work under Professor Ann. Younger sister? Noah was stunned for a moment before he realized what she meant. You mean the cursed child who was transformed into a mechanical soldier by Ayn Rand like you? That's right. Tina said with some nostalgia. IP ranked 100th, Ashley Springer XX, nicknamed Giant Spiked Lizard. Ranked 98th in IP, Tina Sprout, nicknamed Blackwind. IP ranked 95th, Irene Spencer, nicknamed Meteorite Fall. IP ranked 88th, Faye Miller, nicknamed Blackbelly. IP ranked 70th, Louise Selesny, nicknamed Demon Queen. Ranked 21st in the IP rankings, Rita Sosberry, nicknamed Hades. The 6 above are the people who Professor Ayn Rand bought from the black market under various names when she was still alive. She used mechanical surgery to create these people who have the ability of both cursed children and mechanical soldiers. Tina's voice became a little heavy. After Professor Ann passed away, all of my sisters also lost their jobs and shelter. Chapter 21:16. Among the police, there was a saying that was not well known, but it was often mentioned. The top 100 police officers in the IP ranking are all people who sold their souls to the devil. Because the police officers who could reach this ranking, whether they were the promoters or initiators, were not ordinary people. For example, among the promoters, some of them were mechanical soldiers. In the eyes of others, they were no longer human. For example, among the initiators, there were many who, like Tina, worked as assassins and took on many dirty jobs. Of course, Tina's sisters, who were all in the top 100 IP ranking, also had hands full of blood. Like Tina, those children were almost all weapons in Ayn Rand's hands. Usually, they only followed Ayn Rand's orders to complete various tasks. Whether it was humans or animals, they had killed countless of them. Following Ayn Rand's death and Tina's disappearance, the children had completely lost their pillar of support. In the end, the sisters could only accept the arrangement of the International Initiator Monitoring Organization and form police partners with unfamiliar promoters in order to survive. Walking in the corridor of the holy abode, Tina hugged the doll in her arms tightly and said in a low voice, "But in foreign countries, the cursed child suffered more discrimination and hatred than in Tokyo. The promoters of the sisters were all bastards. Not only did they not treat the sisters as humans, they even wanted to abuse them." Is that so? Noah was silent for a while before speaking. Then what happened? Then the sisters couldn't take it anymore and killed all the promoters. Tina's voice became a little sorrowful. Of course, the cursed child killed humans, so it naturally aroused the anger of all the adults who hated the cursed child. The government also issued a wanted order, so the sisters could only live a miserable life like street rats. In the end, they could only go to the black market and accept assassin jobs again to survive. After living like this for a year, The children encountered Tina, who went abroad for a mission. At that time, I received a mission to protect a foreign high-ranking official, and the sisters took on the job of assassinating the official. Tina seemed to be completely evoked by the memories and bit her lip. In the eyes of the sisters, I was undoubtedly a traitor after joining the guild. After a year of accumulated grievances and hatred, they turned their swords on me and even tried to kill me. As one of Ayn Rand's sisters, Tina must have built a good relationship with her sisters, right? Even though they weren't related by blood, Noah could easily imagine how terrible it must have been for Tina to attack her younger sisters. Furthermore, in Tina's heart, perhaps she really did think that she had betrayed her sisters. In fact, even Ayn Rand had died because of her, causing all of her sisters to have one foot in hell. That kind of guilt was enough to crush a 10-year-old girl. However, Tina didn't give up. Although it was very uncomfortable, I felt the warmth of home in Fairy Tale. I made many friends and companions here, and I even got to know my big brother. Tina's expression became somewhat resolute. So, I didn't want to die. Even if all of my sisters were on par with me or even stronger than me, including Rita, who was ranked 21st in IP, I didn't want to give up on this life that was saved by my big brother. It was under that kind of resoluteness that Tina resisted. Facing 5 sisters who were on par with her or even stronger than her, Tina gave it her all and started a battle. In the end, under her obsession, Tina found that her abilities that had been stagnant began to gradually improve during the battle, and the rate of improvement was getting faster and faster. In other words, during that battle, Tina successfully broke through the limits of her growth and reached the domain realm. Tina, whose abilities were rapidly improving, finally defeated her 5 sisters and successfully survived. That was my experience of reaching domain. Tina broke free from the memories of the past and smiled at Noah. From then on, my abilities grew again. Just like before, as long as I continued to use my abilities, they would continue to improve. Even now, it hasn't stopped. Perhaps, for Tina, that was not only a breakthrough in her growth limit, but also a breakthrough in her state of mind. Immediately after that, Tina grew rapidly all the way until now. She was ranked first in IP and had obtained the title of the strongest initiator. Noah was silent. After accidentally learning that Tina had such an experience, Noah felt a little regret in his heart. 3 years ago, in order to prevent innocent cursed children from being sent to the operating table by Ayn Rand and losing their lives in vain, Noah stepped into hell. At the same time, in order to save Tina, he resolutely instigated Chiwu Zhongshuan to assassinate Ayn Rand. In the end, Noah forgot that in Ayn Rand's hands, there might be children who had the same abilities as Tina, cursed children and mechanical soldiers. Unexpectedly, the decision at that time, while saving Tina and the children who were not killed, actually caused Tina's sisters to fall into such a situation. That was indeed Noah's mistake. If he had thought of this earlier, Noah would definitely have sent people to bring those children over, right? What happened after that? Noah could only suppress the slight regret in his heart and laughed bitterly. How are your sisters? Hearing this, Tina turned her head and looked at Noah with a pair of sapphire blue eyes. As if seeing Noah's regret in his heart, she smiled slightly. Big brother, if you want to see my sisters, you can do so when you return to the guild. Return to the guild? Noah was slightly taken aback, but he quickly reacted. You mean? It wasn't easy to meet my sisters, how could I let them go? Tina said somewhat playfully. That's why I brought my sisters back to the guild and forced them to join the guild as their elder sister. Right now, my sisters are the best initiators in our guild. Not only that, Rita, who used to be ranked 21st, is now one of the top 10 initiators in our guild. She's even stronger than Miss Yenju. Is that so? Noah's heart was finally at ease. He couldn't help but smile. Then, when we return, let me meet your sisters. My sisters will be very happy, Tina said with a smile. Then she seemed to have thought of something and began to mutter. But for me, it's just a little dangerous. Dangerous? Noah blinked. Why? Nothing. For some reason, Tina suddenly became angry and quickened her pace. Tina? Noah could only follow along with a dumbstruck expression on his face. Tina was amused by Noah's question, But at the same time, she sighed inwardly. Because I kept praising Big Brother in front of my sisters, it made them all yearn for Big Brother. Every one of them wants to be Big Brother's sister. How can I say something like that? Holy Residence Guest Hall. When Noah and Tina returned, Elysian and Mugging seemed to still be discussing the international conference and the attack last night. Siasher followed beside Mugging like a shadow. Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith also followed beside Elysian and Mugging, loyally carrying out the tasks given to them by Noah. However, the four girls only stood silently at the side with a taciturn look. It was not until Noah appeared in the guest hall that the four girls reacted. He's back! He's back, he's back! Orpheus and Lilith immediately noticed Noah's return. One said expressionlessly while the other said with a slightly excited tone, Master. Aster turned to look at Noah. It seems that we have gained something. Athena displayed her extraordinary wisdom. Her seductive snake eyes flashed as if she could see through everything about Noah. President is back. Even Siasher began to speak, interrupting Elysian and Muging's conversation. Only then did Shangtianzi and Mugung turn their gazes to Noah and smile. The difference was that Muging's smile was a reassuring one. Elysian, on the other hand, gave Noah a gentle smile. Chapter 21:17. For a moment, Noah even saw a hint of Mira on the Holy Heavenly Child. That gentle smile was almost the same as Myra's. However, the Holy Heavenly Child's personality was quite similar to Myra's. Although she wasn't as sweet and gentle as Mira, the Holy Heavenly Child was also a gentle girl on the inside. It was just that she had a sense of resignation and purity. With that in mind, Noah returned a smile and exchanged a look with the Holy Heavenly Child. Perhaps Noah and the Holy Heavenly Child both thought that they were being very discreet? Unfortunately, the girls present were extremely sensitive in this regard. When Noah realized this, Tina and Siasher already had tense expressions on their faces. Even Athena was looking at Noah with a hint of a smile, making Noah feel a little guilty. I say, President. Mugging rubbed his forehead as if he was having a headache. I know you've already taken down our Holy Heavenly Child, but can you please wait until you're together in private before showing off your love? Show off our love? The Holy Heavenly Child's face reddened as she panicked. We didn't do that. Really? Mugging narrowed his eyes with an exasperated expression. If I misunderstood, then I apologize. But Holy Heavenly Child, you don't seem to be convincing at all. The Holy Heavenly Child's face became redder and redder. She couldn't help but turn her head away, not daring to look Mugging in the eye. Little did she know that this reaction made it seem as if she was admitting to it. All right. Mugging looked like he couldn't take it anymore. Looks like he really has been taken down. Tina's expression became extremely tense as she spoke in a low voice. As expected, the Holy Heavenly Child is the most dangerous one. I knew that the Holy Heavenly Child had some feelings for the President. Siasher sighed. Who would have thought that he would really be taken down as soon as he returned? While Mugging, Tina, and Siasher were expressing their thoughts, Orpheus and Lilith were still looking on with perplexed expressions. Taken down. Taken down? Taken down? For Lord Dragon God, who was ignorant of worldly affairs, perhaps the world of adults was too complicated. Master. Aster even raised his head and stared at Noah. His mysterious purple eyes flickered with a pitiful color. Have you already taken down the target of your protection? The corner of Noah's mouth twitched under Aster's innocent gaze. He felt more and more guilty. Isn't it good? Athena's expression was indifferent. Since ancient times, heroes have always been loved by young girls. In this aspect, you are already a sufficient hero. Unfortunately, these words were not compliments to Noah at all. It was more like adding insult to injury. The Elysian Emperor's face turned redder and redder. She felt so ashamed that she wanted to run away. The rest of the girls cast their gazes at Noah. There was blame, scrutiny, doubt, and confusion in their gazes. This made Noah feel as if his head was about to explode. Didn't he just smile at her? Did they have to do this? Noah could only roll his eyes and forcefully change the topic. Cut the crap. Did you guys find anything? Mugging and the others also rolled their eyes at Noah's direct change of topic. Only the Elysian Emperor quickly agreed with Noah. We have already collected the firearms and ammunition used by the terrorists last night. We sent them to the Sima family's company and asked them to help us analyze them. Although the person in charge is Unweaver, which makes me a little unhappy, Mugging said unhappily. But according to them, the analysis results will be out by this time tomorrow. I hope we can find something from the rifling. Rifling refers to the trace left behind by the bullet after it was fired. In the eyes of experts, this trace can give a lot of information, such as the performance of the gun and so on. It can even find out the factory location and the source of the gun and ammunition. Therefore, rifling is also known as the fingerprints of the gun, and is often listed as a necessary investigation target in various large-scale cases. However, even murderers know to wear gloves when they commit a crime to prevent exposing their fingerprints. I don't think that a group of well-trained terrorists who even used mechanical soldiers and protozoa will leave any flaws in the rifling. In the end, we won't be able to find any rifling records, right? Noah said to the Elysian Emperor and Mugging in an affirmative tone. But the Sima family has now almost monopolized the entire weapons business in Tokyo. The guns and ammunition that appear in Tokyo, unless they are smuggled in, will definitely be found out where they were made. If those guns and ammunition were made in Tokyo, it proves that the terrorists are likely to have their own underground arsenal. The Elysian Emperor's tone was a little solemn. Even if it is for the residents of Tokyo, they must be found. I will leave this to you. Noah shrugged. I just think that before we find out, you should be attacked again. Us? The Elysian Emperor and Mugging suddenly cast a speechless look at Noah. Noah was stunned and asked curiously, "Why are you looking at me like that?" The Elysian Emperor and Miss Mugging want to tell the president, "Please don't forget yourself." Xiaoshur interrupted. "Please don't forget, now you are the terrorists' primary target." Hearing that, Noah finally understood what they were trying to say. The terrorists attacked Mugging because Mugging was the acting president of Fairy Tale, the leader of a force that now had the ability to compete for world domination. The Elysian Emperor was attacked because he was the only head of state that stood in the position of an ally of Fairyland. Now that Noah was back, the terrorist target naturally turned to the master, who would decide whether Fairyland would become the world's overlord. Noah had been paying attention to the safety of Mugging and the Elysian Emperor, but he forgot. Now he was the terrorist's primary target. I really forgot about it. Noah could not help but laugh. But if they are only targeting me, then that's great. After all, Noah had to pay attention to the terrorists because he needed to take care of the people around him. If it was only his problem, then for Noah, it was really easy to solve. Not to mention, the little girls around Noah would not let the terrorists do whatever they wanted. No matter who they are, as long as I am with Master, then we will not lose. Aster said expressionlessly. I am Master's sword, so I will protect Master. Protect Noah. Orpheus' young face also had a layer of seriousness. Protect Noah, protect Noah. Lilith even got into her stance. Her small fist swung forward a few times, creating a heavy sonic boom. The terrifying power that seemed to be able to directly shatter space made the Elysian Emperor, Mugging, and Xiaoshur tremble in fear. Only Athena turned her head away in boredom. This was because she knew that in this world, no one would be able to threaten Noah no matter how big of an accident it was. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have asked them to protect the people around them. Of course, I will also protect Big Brother. Tina hugged the doll and smiled at Noah. After all, I am the one who started Big Brother. Then I really have to thank you. Noah smiled at the group of little girls and touched them one by one. Of course, he touched their heads. And those who had other thoughts were all facing the wall. Elysian Emperor could not help but laugh when he saw the scene of Noah mingling with the girls. Xiaoshur's eyes had a hint of envy. As for Mugging, before he could say anything, he received a call. Mugging took out his phone and placed it on his ear. The next second, his eyes lit up and he suddenly smiled. What's wrong? Noah saw this scene clearly and asked curiously. Did something good happen? It should be considered good, right? Mugging hung up the phone and said to Noah with a face full of smiles. A certain police officer with a strong sense of justice is back, and he is already in the Tokyo area. Noah raised his eyebrows at once and then smiled. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.